In Konoha the opening game plays as Jikuni Yuanichi Chapter 201-225. Chapter 201. Why is this? Why did the shurikens disappear out of thin air? Is it because I am dazzled? Yao Fu, Fat Tiger, did you see it? We are too. What kind of ninjutsu is this? Could it be? Oh my god. At this moment, the Konoha ninjas were petrified. Shocked, standing stupidly. Everyone rubbed their eyes hard, but no matter how hard they stared, the huge shuriken disappeared in the air. Humph. Obito was very satisfied with their expressions, similar to his current state, and especially enjoyed the expressions of Kakashi and others. This is a unique skill that is activated after my eyes are gathered together. Despair, dying at the hands of Uchiha, you are not in vain. If Hitaki Kusuo's expression could be the same as theirs, Obito thought so. He was extremely eager to see Hitaki Kusuo being like those Anbu ninjas of Konoha, unbelievable, panic-stricken, fearful, confused, he could enjoy it. But he finally had a strong power after countless experiments. However, the result was just the opposite. Not only did Hitaki Kusuo not have any extra expression, but he was still so calm. Ah. Damn it. Hitaki Kusuo, this man, why is he still so calm? The more he thought about it, the angrier he got. Obito was angry. Until now, even though Hitaki Kusuo had witnessed the disappearance of the Kamui Shuriken with his own eyes, he did not panic at all. Could it be? This guy knows the details of this move. Suddenly, a thought came up for no reason. Impossible. Obito shook his head. In his opinion, this was absolutely impossible. Swish. Suddenly, in the sky where everyone was looking up, when he was only less than 10 meters away from Hitaki Kusuo, the Kamui Shuriken that had disappeared for a few seconds suddenly appeared, bringing with it a fierce gust of wind, and was about to engulf his body. Lord Kusuo. Kusuo. Not good, Lord Kusuo, be careful. The people of Konoha were stunned. This result was both abrupt and expected. After seeing this Uchiha clan member, this person called Uchiha Madara, who had the mysterious ability to make part of his body disappear, they had a vague guess. Unexpectedly, this ninjutsu was exactly the same as they guessed. It is impossible to defend against it. It is impossible to predict when the shuriken will appear. Moreover, the shuriken is huge, comparable to the size of 3 adults. With such a fast speed, it suddenly appears out of thin air, and at such a close distance, how to hide? It can be foreseen. As long as a normal ninja faces this move, there is no possibility of escape, and there is no chance of survival. Even if it is a shadow. Unless, it is the speed of the ninja world at the level of Raikage. Of course, Raikage I can only flee in panic. Master Kusuo, run away. Hide quickly. Can you hide? Definitely. Everyone's eyes gathered together, and every time the shuriken spun in the air, their hearts sank and they became more nervous. Finally. Dang. The sound of metal clashing. A crisp sound rang out. Accompanied by brilliant sparks. Hitaki Kusuo drew his sword and blocked it. The Kamui Shuriken was huge, as big as 2 or 3 of Hitaki Kusuo's, but under his sword, it couldn't get an inch. Shocked. Incredibly shocked. This terrifying power can be seen. Great. What an amazing power. I didn't expect that Lord Kusuo could block such a huge hidden weapon attack with just a sword. Yes. What a terrifying strength. This power, I'm afraid only Lady Tsunade can match. Don't be complacent, the enemy is just making a tentative attack, Lord Kusuo was just parrying just now. Among the crowd, there were people with calm personalities who calmly analyzed the current situation. Everyone nodded in awe. Yes. Such a huge Susanoo is rare in their lives. Too strong. With this level of combat power, they can only watch from the sidelines, and even participating in the battle seems a little inadequate. If they were not the elite of Konoha, they would have dropped their weapons and waited for death in fear. Just like the state of the ninja coalition in the Fourth War in the original work when they saw the battle between Madara and the first generation. Whoosh. Whoosh. At this time, 2 figures hurried over. It was Tsunade and Jiraiya. The two looked solemn, and after a brief explanation from Kakashi and others, they realized the crisis of the situation. Now that the village has just settled down, Tsunade has just been relieved as the Hokage. Is this Susanoo? It is really as powerful as a monster. It is indeed as legendary as it should not be underestimated. Jiraiya's face was very heavy. He looked at the huge Tengu Susanoo in the sky, and his always tough heart was shaken. Yes, it's hard to imagine that mortals can possess this power. Tsunade's eyes were like torches, and she took a step forward and stood side by side with Jiraiya. She had heard of her family history that her grandfather, the first Hokage, Senju Hashirama, had fought against enemies of this level. Even, Madara's strength was even higher than the mysterious man who claimed to be like this. HMPH. Do you think this is the end? Hitaki Kusuo easily blocked a Kamui shuriken with his sword, and Obito sneered, not taking Tsunade and Jiraiya's arrival to heart at all. For him, ordinary shadows could no longer attract his attention. His enemy, from beginning to end, was only Hitaki Kusuo. It's not over yet. Obito shouted, swoosh. Another huge shuriken appeared out of thin air, and not only did it have a powerful attack effect, it even distorted the surrounding space. Not good. This move. The people below seemed to have seen the consequences of Kamui shuriken twisting nearby objects into a specific space, and they all cried out in surprise. The corners of Obito's mouth rose slightly. This time, I won. As soon as the voice fell. Swish. Slash. A shocking slash. A shocking and magnificent sword energy passed through. It illuminated the sky brilliantly. The sword energy was so bright that people couldn't open their eyes. What is this? Obito was in the body of Susanoo, with doubts in his eyes. A clear throat suddenly drilled straight into his ears from below. Sun-breathing 10th form. Brilliant enlightenment. Boom. The shocking beauty that filled the entire sky dyed the night like day. The blazing, burning high temperature swept the sky. What kind of sword was that? Like a slash through the black sky, the entire world within sight was split in two, hitting Obito's Susanoo. Crack. The void split open. Obito seemed to realize what the outcome would be, and he was shocked and panicked, mixed with a bit of disbelief, a bit of fear and despair, and more of unwillingness. No. With a long desperate roar, the sword energy instantly melted half of Susanoo's body, revealing an orange-red cut surface. The tall, majestic half-complete Susanoo collapsed in response, relying on the remaining wings to barely maintain its position. Below, there was a heroic young man in a misty red robe with flying long hair, full of vitality, and a chic and indifferent expression. The posture of standing quietly with a sword in hand was like a strong man standing at the top of the entire ninja world, disdaining the challenge of the weak. Win. Win. Just like that. The Konoha ninja was dumbfounded, and his brain was about to crash. The whole audience was shocked. At this moment, the whole memory was still stuck on the amazing sword a few seconds ago. This brat is still so good. Tsunade shrugged her nose, closed her mouth that had just opened in surprise, and her eyes flashed with a strange light. Chapter 202. One sword, two swords. Susanoo, which is superior to most ordinary ninjutsu, refreshed the Konoha ninja's understanding of power with two swords. Not good. The barrier is about to break, everyone be careful not to be affected. Tsunade immediately shifted her gaze to the direction of Jiraiya outside, and unexpectedly found that there was no trace there. She was stunned and suddenly realized that this old partner seemed to have his own ideas. The next second. Senjutsu, Gomon. Boom. The raging flames, mixed with kerosene and hurricanes, all tilted violently to Obito's face. The ninjas of Konoha were watching this scene blankly below, just like someone scooped a basin of fire water from a volcano to wash Susanoo's face. That's right. It was washing his face. Jiraiya had been waiting for a long time. If he didn't make a move, it would be earth-shattering. This move is his most destructive and wide-ranging ninjutsu. The amount of chakra required and the time to issue it require many prerequisites. First of all, the two great sages Fukasaku and Shima are indispensable. Without the oil and wind assistance of the two great sages, the fire could not take advantage of the momentum, and its power was far less exaggerated than it is now. It's a good ninjutsu. Hitaki Kusuo looked at Obito's body in the diamond-shaped lens on Susanoo's forehead being hit head-on, and the firelight was shining, and he praised it. He also has Sage Chakra, and it is astonishingly huge. It is difficult to say how vast and surging the natural energy in his body is, but as long as he wants, he can completely absorb all the natural energy within a radius of 1,000 kilometers. It is even more exaggerated. That was how he went to Myoboku Mountain. Did it succeed? As expected of Jiraiya-sama, one move is a fatal blow. If the enemy is hit head-on by such a ninjutsu, even Susanoo will not be spared, right? A squad leader of the Anbu was both expectant and nervous. No one has ever seen the true power of Susanoo, and whether it can be crushed head-on is a question. The strength of Lord Kusuo is immeasurable, and his sword energy cannot be used as a measure. Ha 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 ha, you are such a naive and ignorant person. You can't do anything to me with such a trick. However, a wanton laugh came from the sky. Gomon's fire dissipated, and Obito's light blue Susanoo appeared in people's sight again without any damage. How is it possible? Unscathed. Is it fake? Damn it. Why is there such a big gap? The people of Konoha gnashed their teeth, especially the senior ninjas who were responsible for setting up the Six Purple Suns formation, who were extremely frustrated and nervous. You look down on me. Tsunade saw the low morale, gritted her teeth, and leapt up with a sky-high momentum, heading straight for the sky. She actually used her body strength to force herself to the sky. Of course, it was not the same as Kai being able to walk in the sky after opening the 8 gates. Tsunade would fall down the next moment. However, this was enough to illustrate the explosion of her physical strength at this moment. Bang! Crack tilde. After a deafening fist explosion, Tsunade, who was holding up Obito's wings and had most of them cut off, hit Obito's Susanoo head-on. It was like a mirror breaking, making a crisp cracking sound. Everyone was so excited to find that the seemingly invincible Susanoo, which seemed like a god descending from heaven, was actually smashed by the Hokage with one punch. Great! The Hokage is different. His attack is as powerful as thunder and lightning, and the enemy will definitely be in trouble. One punch can smash the enemy's tortoise shell. In their opinion, this is a complete crushing of combat power. Obito's face finally became uncertain. His face hidden under the mask gradually became gloomy, and his eyes swept across the people below, feeling irritable. His original intention was to sneak in secretly and take the opportunity to find Naruto and take him away. Or find the feeling, use the advantage of Kamui to surprise and attack by surprise to forcefully absorb into the space, and then he can interrogate him in detail. However, he ran into this guy, Hitaki Kusuo, right at the beginning. His keen perception is not like a normal person. He is only 15 years old. At this time, he was barely a mature ninja under Madara's training. Obito even thought that if he hadn't opened his eyes, he would have only been a jonin in his life, and the gap between him and Hitaki Kusuo was as big as Haoyu and Yingchong. Now, the only one he really feared was Hitaki Kusuo. This guy, after using 2 swords, just stood there like watching a show, letting these Konoha clowns do whatever they wanted. What's more hateful is that some of these Konoha clowns can actually hurt his Susanoo. Jiraiya's attack was caused by him desperately increasing the injection of pupil power to win in this long-lasting consumption. Originally, Obito expected that Tsunade and Jiraiya had no means of attack in the sky, so he could rest easy. He had calculated everything, but he had overlooked the fairy method and Tsunade's strange power. Hitaki Kusuo, he was not going to make a move yet. What was he thinking about? What was his relationship with Konoha now? Why did he give himself the tailed beast chakra? A series of questions and fears were written on his face. Obito was scared. He didn't dare to attack easily. He was afraid that if he acted rashly again, Kusuo Hitaki would find a flaw and slash him with a sword. At that time, he might not even have a chance to escape from the Kamui. Is the Kamui fast? Fast. Especially after the 2 Kamuis were gathered, and fused with the clone's Mangekyo, these eyes were already infinitely close to the trend of the eternal eye. It only takes a few tenths of a second to perform the pupil technique. But Kusuo Hitaki's sword was faster. He might not be able to get a few tenths of a second. Unless, he hid as soon as he saw him raise his hand, and became a complete coward. Rin. And Kakashi. I can't hide anymore. He remembered that night. Qian Hao. Rin died in front of him. Kakashi's Reikiri killed her. It was all because he arrived too late. So he failed to save Lin's life in time, so he couldn't hide. He had to take the initiative. Strange fluctuations were beating in his eye sockets, and his heart was beating so fast. Obito was shocked, and his emotions had affected the stability of his pupil power. Not good. If we continue like this, it will only be a waste of time. The plan has completely failed. It's better to go back and make plans earlier. He quickly calculated the next action in his mind. Obito remained calm on the surface, and the next moment he was going to launch the pupil technique and disappear here. It's a pity. His plan was all seen through by Kusuo Hatake. In the transparent world, what kind of human fluctuations can escape his eyes? In that case, I'll give you another sword before you leave. Kusuo Hatake raised a sword and swept it towards Obito lightly. Pull out. Chapter 203. The sword energy was like a rainbow, as sharp as ever. ZZ. Like the yellow sun, like the cold frost and lightning. That sword, with its momentum of breaking bamboo, was wrapped in an invincible sharpness. It came suddenly. Even the people of Konoha were not mentally prepared. They knew that Lord Kusuo had been there, and they were lucky enough to see the two amazing swords. But why he didn't take action in the later period, they were very confused, but they didn't dare to ask. Hatake Kusuo's strength has made his identity infinitely close to the style of the first generation. Boom. The sky seemed to be split. The sky showed a deep gully. Under this sword, Obito's Susanoo was completely split, turned into stars, and turned into a sky full of stars, which was very beautiful. This. Gulu. Isn't this too scary? Shocked. The huge Susanoo that Jiraiya and Hokage had tried their best to deal with was actually cut by his sword. Hiss. I dare not think about it, I dare not think about it. The starlight gradually dissipated, and everyone stared with wide eyes trying to see the enemy's figure clearly. However, they opened their eyes as wide as possible, but still could not see the figure of the masked enemy. Where did the person go? Not good. He must have used his mysterious eye technique to hide again. That's right. Everyone be careful. Pay attention to the alert, especially observe the surrounding directions. The crowd panicked and began to pay careful attention to the surrounding environment. All the ninjas took out weapons such as kunai and shuriken, ready to attack at any time. Only Hatake Kusuo was calm as usual. He knew. Obito must have used Kamui to escape. This sword of his was also used to let Obito take the opportunity to escape. But no one could detect his intention. At least, ordinary ninjas don't have this ability. As for Jiraiya and Tsunade, even if they knew, what would happen? With a sneer, Kusuo Hatake put away his sword and jumped down, jumping directly from the statue of the first Hokage. Lord Kusuo. The ninjas of Konoha were dumbfounded as they watched him leave in a chic manner. He left just now. Are they so confident that the enemy won't come out again? After all, they were not familiar with Kusuo Hatake, and because of their identities, they didn't dare to step forward and ask. Kakashi, who was a little more familiar with him, fell into serious regret. He vaguely confirmed the identity of the mysterious enemy and doubted his life at this moment. Asuma, needless to say, was very ashamed. In this battle, whether it was the direct confrontation at the beginning or the auxiliary battle after the arrival of the Hokage, he couldn't help. These two people can be said to be the best, most familiar, and most knowledgeable people to Kusuo Hatake in the Mesozoic era. But today, they are still amazed by the power of his swordsmanship. This gap is already as big as heaven and earth. The legend of the god of ninja, the style of the first generation of Hokage who pacified the troubled times, was seen in a young man early on. This is good news to boost the morale of Konoha. Just don't know why Lord Kusuo's personality has become more and more cold. They can't see through Hatake Kusuo's heart, and Hatake Kusuo doesn't intend to explain it to them. Suna, are you okay? Jiraiya lifted the sage state and sent the two sages back to Myoboku Mountain. Tsunade shook her head, indicating that she was fine. Why didn't Kusuo kill the other party? Jiraiya expressed his doubts. Based on the limited experience of carrying out missions with Hitaki Kusuo has always been decisive and powerful. Never dragging his feet, he never compares to enemies who can be killed in one sword. But today he only used 3 swords, although these 3 swords were all amazingly powerful, making the 2 of them feel inferior. I don't know. I can't figure out what this brat is thinking. We can't control him. Let him be. As long as he is in the village and still has the village in his heart, it's not a bad thing. Tsunade could only comfort herself in this way. Jiraiya pondered for a while and nodded. At this point, this is the only way. Notify everyone to retreat. It's the middle of the night. Let the villagers feel at ease. Kusuo-kun. What happened outside? Hanabi wanted to go out to see, but I stopped her. Hinata leaned against the door, looking eagerly, and her eyes lit up the moment she saw Kusuo Hitaki. Kusuo Hitaki smiled and hugged the girl, feeling the warm breath. Nothing, a little mouse sneaked into the village to do bad things. Oh. Hinata didn't understand, and her face suddenly turned red. Ahem. A coughing sound came from behind. Shion looked at her with a scrutinizing look, and forcibly separated the two. Shion, you haven't slept either. Kusuo Hitaki smiled and greeted. Shion rolled her eyes, the village is so chaotic tonight, how can I sleep? No, it's cold outside, let's talk inside. The 3 of them went into the house together, and Hanabi practiced cross-legged in the inner room. Seeing Kusuo Hitaki and his sister Shion return together, her eyes were also full of smiles. Brother. Yeah. Kusuo Hitaki touched her head, his eyes were heavy, and he scanned her body. A faint breath of thunder roamed in her body, like a tiny dragon that had not yet fully grown. Hanabi's breath of thunder has already begun to show results. Perhaps in the future, there will be a little lowly with thunder and lightning on the battlefield, coming and going freely on the battlefield, lightning and thunder. We have to speed up the planning of the Demon Slayer Corps. Obito and the others can't wait long. Hitaki Kusuo said to the 3 girls. Yeah. Ramen Village, the underground secret base of the Akatsuki organization. It is humid here all year round, and the drizzle makes mosquitoes rampant. A twisted wave suddenly appeared, and the spiral space seemed to be torn open. Obito got out of it. As soon as he appeared, he immediately knelt on the ground, covering his chest with his right hand, where there was a bloody cut. Looking at the way the wound healed, it was obvious that it had been a long time, but it was still sizzling and emitting hot steam. Damn it! What kind of magic power does his sword have that makes my soul start to ache? Cold sweat kept coming out of Obito's forehead. At this moment, a black and white figure suddenly emerged from the wall, smiling and making a sinister voice. What's wrong? You look so embarrassed again. Obito's face was gloomy, and he whispered, the plan failed, and it was blocked by Hitaki Kusuo again. Z still had a smile on his face, as if he didn't take the game seriously. But deep in his heart, he felt a great fear. At this moment, he finally realized that Hitaki Kusuo would be the biggest obstacle on his way to revive Kagaya Otsutsuki. So what are you going to do? Z rarely laughed, but looked serious. We are no match for him now. He has the Samsara Eye, but we don't know what his purpose is yet. Let's wait. The experiment has been a great success. My eyes are no less powerful than the ordinary Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. In time, I will let it evolve again. Once I can reach the threshold of the Samsara Eye, I am confident that I will be no less powerful than him. As Obito spoke, he felt a sharp pain in his chest again. The pain that penetrated deep into his bones distorted his expression. After a long time, he regained his confidence. For a long time, everything fell into silence. The previous battle with Hitaki Kusuo was indeed dangerous. However, when fighting with Kakashi, the complex expressions on Kakashi's face, such as astonishment, fear, and disbelief, were the time he enjoyed the most. Kakashi, you didn't expect that the former last-placed person could play with you. This kind of pleasure of turning over and becoming the master made Obito proud and rampant. I don't understand it at all. He shook his head, slowly drilled back into the wall, and disappeared. The ninja world is in turmoil now. The Akatsuki organization is active again and is hunting for tailed beasts and Jinchuriki. The Hokage of Konoha village was lined up. Tsunade was sitting upright. In front of him stood Jiraiya and Kakashi. There was no one else. Kakashi remained silent. The battle that night obviously traumatized him deeply. He couldn't recover for a while. Kakashi looked so depressed more than once or twice. However, Tsunade didn't know the inside story and thought it was just a short-term defeat caused by overwhelming strength. The current situation is more turbulent than the previous warring states period. Although our Konoha is strong, we still don't have enough manpower. That's why Jiraiya and I discussed it and prepared to select a group of inheritors of the Will of Fire and find a group of people worthy of trust to go to study. Kakashi didn't have any other thoughts about Tsunade's decision and remained expressionless. His expressionless face made Jiraiya's heart jump. This kid, is he not stimulated by something again? Tsunade continued. Jiraiya, take out the things. Jiraiya made seals with both hands and summoned a scroll. The scroll was red with white borders, simple and heavy. Jiraiya said in a deep voice. This is the core secret of our Konoha, the sealed scroll. It records all the S-level ninjutsu from the beginning of the village to the present, even forbidden ninjutsu. Now I am going to appoint you as the captain of the advanced training class, responsible for recruiting a team of 5 people, each of whom can choose an S-level ninjutsu to learn for a period of 3 months. At the end of 3 months, no matter what the training results are, the village will accept you. Return this scroll. This was the agreement reached urgently by the Hokage high-level officials last night. Although Udatane Kaharu and Mitomen En had some arguments, they fell silent after Tsunade mentioned Obito's invasion and the Akatsuki's massive hunt for Jinchuriki. After weighing the pros and cons, they finally agreed to this request. The seal scroll was about to be released for the first time, and this news really made Kakashi's eyebrows jump. He touched his right eye. I know. After sending Kakashi away and looking at his dejected and lost back, Tsunade sighed. He's not in a good state recently. You have time to follow him more and don't let him have any problems. Jiraiya nodded. He understood what Tsunade meant. Kakashi's life can be lost, but the seal scroll cannot be lost. By the way, it seems that there has been no news about Kusuo for a while. Tsunade showed a helpless expression when she heard Jiraiya asking about Seiki Kusuo. Don't ask me, I don't know either. The position of Hokage's bodyguard I set up for him is like a fake one. This brat has never fulfilled his duties once. I still want to ask you. Yes. It is rare that the 2 strongest fighters in Konoha village do not know the situation of a younger generation in the village. It is even unheard of since the Warring States period. Even the first-generation Hokage, Hashirama Senju, who is known as the god of ninja, was still suppressed by his father when he was young. It was not until he took over as the clan leader that he could be a little free. Chapter 204 Kakashi took the scroll and fell into deep thought. Tsunade's behavior is understandable. That night, Obito's invasion was like entering an empty place, simply trampling on Konoha's face. It is a great shame for the first ninja village to be freely come and go and be called and scolded by others. However, the village's thinking seems to have a problem. That is, they think that the weapon to defeat Obito should be the space-time ninjutsu, looking for a genius like the 4th Hokage back then to fight against Obito's Kamui. Thinking this way is not necessarily wrong, but it still makes me feel depressed. Obito, why didn't you die? Why did you become like this tilde? Kakashi murmured, with a sadness in his heart that was like a mountain, lingering. Go ask his cousin. At this point, Kakashi can only find his mysterious cousin who seems to know everything for help. The Hitaki family is very quiet, and the prosperity of the clan cannot be brought up by 1 or 2 geniuses. Even if Hitaki Kusuo took the initiative to carry the banner of the Hitaki clan, it would take at least several decades to develop and grow. Suo. Kakashi stood outside the door and knocked on the door, asking. After a while, a beautiful figure quietly appeared. It turned out to be Senior Kakashi. Hanabi bowed politely. Kakashi nodded as well. He was very perceptive and noticed that this little loli seemed to have something different in her body. That feeling. Although I lost my Sharingan, that feeling is not wrong. Hanabi seems to have the same talent as Kusuo. But he looked normal and didn't show it. Is Kusuo here? Yes, drinking tea. Hanabi welcomed Kakashi into the room, where only Hitaki Kusuo was alone. I really envy you. Kakashi said to him. What should I envy? Hitaki Kusuo didn't care. People in the Naruto world are just hypocritical. General hypocrisy is okay. Control is not a bad habit, but if you are hypocritical for a long time, your personality will be distorted. For example, a certain Itachi, a certain Wuukai. Let's not talk about this. Look at what this is. Kakashi threw the sealing scroll to Kusuo Hitaki. Kusuo Hitaki took it and was instantly attracted by the contents recorded in it. He flipped through it briefly, and found Impure World Reincarnation, Flying Thunder God Technique, Multiple Shadow Clone Technique. The forbidden techniques that were already very popular in the original work were listed. Is this the sealing scroll? Well, Lord Hokage gave it to me and asked me to select 5 people to choose a forbidden technique to practice. So that's how it is. Tsunade is spending a lot of money. According to common sense, only those who have made great contributions will have the opportunity to read the sealing scroll. For example, the 4th Hokage Minato Namikaze, Konoha would suffer a great loss without him in the 3 wars, and he was given the opportunity to read the sealing scroll in addition to his other merits. Now, Tsunade is going to show him to 5 people for free. This means that Tsunade is also starting to panic. What are you looking for me for? After flipping through it casually, Kusuo Hitaki threw the scroll to Kakashi. There was only a catalog in it, no content. Specific things can only be viewed after the seal is lifted. So Naruto can watch it after getting the scroll, and can also, just happen, to learn the multiple shadow clone technique that matches his huge amount of chakra. It is said that it was an accident. The 3rd Hokage is likely to jump out of the coffin and beat people. I want you to give me some reference opinions. I don't have any good ideas about the candidates for these 5 people. 0 Please give me flowers. So this is it. Looking at this cousin who is more than 10 years older than him, Kusuo Hitaki stared at Kakashi and made him feel scared. After a little contemplation, Kusuo Hitaki couldn't think of any good candidates. The 12 little strongmen each has its own advantages, but it is still a little bit lacking to practice forbidden techniques alone. Maybe the 2nd pillar can do it. But now he is still in love with Orochimaru. With the help of the Akatsuki organization, Orochimaru's strength has greatly increased. Obviously, the 2nd pillar cannot beat Orochimaru at present. As for what opportunities he will have in the future, it depends on his other luck. 0. How about this? I suggest you ask the Hokage to hold a new Chunin exam, and the location will be in the Wind Country. At that time, it should not be difficult to select a group of excellent seeds from the village. Chunin exam. Kakashi was confused, and after careful thinking, he suddenly realized it. Great. Through the Chunin exam, the 5 major countries were gathered together. Although the organizer is the Wind Country, everyone with a discerning eye knows that the Wind Country is now under the control of the Fire Country. It is equivalent to waiting for the rabbit to come, and digging out the good seedlings of the 5 major countries. Then, wait for the Akatsuki organization to take the initiative and reveal its flaws. At that time, those who can safeguard Konoha's interests in the turmoil and perform well can be considered for promotion to the 5-member Forbidden Technique training team. Okay. I understand. Thank you, Kusuo. Kakashi was a little excited. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that this plan was perfect. Then, you will be in charge at that time, right? Kakashi was a little uncertain. If the Akatsuki organization really attacked, or new enemies appeared, it would be a bit weak without the suppression of Kusuo Hitaki, to be honest. After all, in the current ninja world, the strength of the cage level is not enough. Chapter 205. Why are you afraid? Kakashi looked at Kakashi with a smile. Kakashi was a little scared by Kusuo Hitaki's smile. He scratched his head embarrassedly. The enemy's strength is too strong. I'm worried about changes. This is not consistent with his previous calm performance. Kakashi smiled knowingly. Actually, he was just teasing his serious cousin. In the original book, Kakashi was so nice, he could occasionally have fun and play a little. Now, after suffering a series of blows from Obito, he was depressed and silent, like a stuffy jar. 807. Don't worry, I'll go. Kusuo-kun, where are you going? Just at this time, Shion and Hinata also ran over. There was sweat on the wings of their noses, obviously they had just returned home from training. Let's talk about this later. Hitaki Kusuo smiled and hugged Shion and Hinata in his arms, not caring about his cousin Kakashi's presence. Kakashi touched his nose, obviously couldn't stand this way of showing affection in front of him. He said goodbye and left immediately. That night, Kakashi met the Hokage. After telling Tsunade about the plan given by Hitaki Kusuo, Tsunade agreed immediately. A week later, the 5 major countries all received invitations from Konoha. A new round of Chunin exams is about to start again. This exam is different from 3 years ago. Many small ninja villages can participate. It is precisely because of this that people like Orochimaru have the opportunity to take advantage of it. The Konoha collapse plan brought a devastating disaster to Konoha village. If it weren't for the presence of Hitaki Kusuo, the consequences would be unpredictable. The Land of Lightning, the Hidden Cloud Village. The 4th Raikage looked at the documents irritably. What on earth are they trying to do in Konoha? Will the Chunin exams start in 2 years? And according to convention, it should be our Land of Lightning. Mabuyi and Samui had been released as a sign of sincerity after the Land of Lightning's envoys entered Konoha before, and now they are standing respectfully beside him. Lord Raikage, I think they must be planning a big move, and I suspect it is related to the Akatsuki organization. As a think tank, Samui gave his opinion accurately. Raikage nodded. I think so too. How about this? You go and gather the young people in the village and ask them if they are willing to participate in this midterm exam. Raikage said this because of what happened before. One of the 5 major ninja villages, in the Land of Fire, had its Raikage guards killed in public. This great shame, once reported back, caused an uproar in the entire Cloud Village. They all asked the Raikage to fight for the country, saying that they would go to war for the country, bring back the hateful guy Hitaki Kusuo, and execute him on the spot. If it weren't for the strong suppression of the 4th Raikage, I'm afraid there would be a lot of trouble. Is that little monster something you can touch? Raikage complained disdainfully. Thinking back to those swords and touching his empty arms, I still has lingering fears. Except for the Cloud Village of the Land of Lightning representative team, all the elite Jonin and above masters of the Sand Village of the Land of Earth were killed. The 3rd Tsuchikage Onoki committed suicide to apologize. The operation of the entire village is controlled by the granddaughter of the 3rd Tsuchikage Onoki. What did they want to do in Konoha? Kuritsuchi frowned her delicate eyebrows, and her face was covered with frost. Her family and her village were destroyed by Konoha. Now they are still sending invitations to them, what a shame. However, the envoy of Konoha is standing in front, and she dare not offend him. Therefore, she had to suppress her anger. Please tell your village that we will definitely participate in the future. In the entire ninja world, the 5 it is an indisputable fact that big countries respect the Land of Fire in Konoha. The 4th Ninja World War completely broke the bones of other countries. With tears in their eyes, they could only swallow their bitterness. The Land of Fire not only did not suffer a major trauma, but also gained a lot of benefits from this war. Everything is because of the young man named Kusuo Hitaki. 100 years ago, the demeanor of the first generation of Naruto shrouded everyone's heart. That guy is so scary, do we still have room for recovery? Kuritsuchi remembered the sword in the hand of Kusuo Hitaki, trembled in his heart, and showed a fearful expression on his face. With emotion. Don't say the Land of Earth Sand Village, I'm afraid other villages can't find such a master. 100 years ago, Konoha had 2 top masters, Hashirama Senju and Madara Uchiha. 100 years later, Kusuo Hitaki was born. The good luck of the Land of Fire made other countries drool with envy. That's it. The news that the new round of Chunin exam will be held in Wind Country quickly spread throughout the human world. This time, the Chunin exam has clear regulations, and small countries are not allowed to participate. Directly eliminate the opportunity for those underground evil forces and ambitious people to use small countries and villages to package and sneak in secretly. In the base of the Akatsuki organization, Rain Village, Obito's face was twisted and almost squeezed together. Chapter 206. Nagato, how is your body? Quiet darkness is the main tone here. Conan's feminine voice sounded. In the darkness. A slender shadow stood up from the bed. He supported his body with one hand and covered his eyes with the other hand. I feel that this new pair of eyes has brought me new abilities. Nagato's previous skinny image has changed greatly, and his pale hair has returned to bright red, symbolizing the vigor of vitality. New eyes. Conan was a little puzzled. After the samsara eye was taken away, it was incredible that Obito could help. The pair of Byakugan that was dug out from nowhere was also given to Nagato, but it was just an ordinary pair of Byakugan. No matter how pure it was useless. Are you saying that these eyes have mutated, or evolved? Conan asked tentatively. Nagato nodded, thinking. I feel like this power can affect the fluctuation of time. He sounded a little doubtful, but also a little sure. 06 This contradictory emotion was reflected in him. Anyway, just heal the wound first. Conan no longer cared about these things, she just wanted Nagato to be safe. Don't worry, I'm fine. By the way, what has Obito done recently? When Obito was mentioned, Nagato's face instantly turned gloomy. No matter whether the latter saved him or gave him a favor, the two of them were destined to become enemies. As the saying goes, people with different philosophies cannot work together. If they are on opposite paths, they can never go together. Speaking of Obito, Conan sneered, that guy overestimated his own abilities and went to Konoha village alone to provoke that guy. As a result, he was beaten to a pulp. The last time I saw him, he was seriously injured. Are you talking about him? Nagato's tone tightened. Yes. It seems that the boy has made progress in swordsmanship and is even more terrifying than we were at the beginning. Immediately. The two fell into silence together. Let's do this. Our strength is not enough to be his enemy. There is a chance to take back the samsara eye. Now we should lie dormant and recruit people. Nagato laughed at himself. He who claimed to be a god ended up like this. Unexpectedly, Shaolin shook her head. I'm afraid there is no such opportunity. Obito has already launched the tailed beast capture plan in advance. The 3-tailed, 5-tailed, and 6-tailed have all fallen into his hands. Obito broke into Konoha before, just to interrogate the news of the 8-tailed and 9-tailed. What? Is he crazy to do this? Nagato's face was full of disbelief. He who claimed to be a god knew very well in his heart that all his strength was completely dependent on the pair of reincarnation eyes. With the reincarnation eyes, he is a god, he can judge the world, and he can create weapons that can shock the entire human world. And the tailed beast capture plan must also have the help of the reincarnation eyes to safely and smoothly merge into the 10-tailed outer path demon statue. Obito doesn't have the reincarnation eyes, why does he dare to do this? How did he arrange those tails? Nagato was eager to know what happened when he was unconscious. Conan shook her head. I don't know the details. Now he and Ju are guarding me like a thief. The paper clone can't get within 100 meters of them. It's as expected. Time is running out. A long sigh. Nagato walked out of the house with the help of Conan. The rain transformation technique, without the support of the samsara eye, is not as effective as before. It's rare to see the sun today. The temperature is still wet and cold, but the sunlight on the back of my hand can vaguely feel a little warmth. Nagato murmured to himself, sunshine, sun, hope, Yahiko. The land of wind, the hidden sand village. What do you think Konoha is up to? Why did they arrange the Chunin exam in our village? Kan Julong and Tamari directed the ninjas below to work, and took time to chat secretly. Tamari has grown up a lot these years, and she is graceful, and her little lotus has already shown its sharp corners, which is quite interesting. How can I guess this? It is probably that boy's idea. Kanjiro curled his lips and shuddered all over. It seems to be a name that cannot be mentioned. Hitaki Kusuo is the nightmare of the entire Wind Country. He is shrouded in everyone's heart. He slaughtered the entire village with his own strength. This feat is a hero for Konoha, but a demon for them. I can't care so much. The future of the village is in your hands and mine. Gaara is still in their hands. As long as I can bring Shukaku back smoothly, it doesn't matter if I am wronged. Tamari knows the truth that the times are playing tricks on people. She knows that she can't fight Konoha village head-on at this time. Okay. The selection site for the Chunin exam was arranged in the new Cage building. This is a mushroom-shaped earthen mound structure, with a different world inside. The whole structure is protected by secret techniques, solid and unbreakable. The exam is also divided into 3 steps. The first is a written test. The second is a ninjutsu test. The third is a practical test. These 3 competitions were also the opinions given by Kusuo Hitaki later. The written test can naturally show whether a ninja's basic knowledge is solid. It determines whether this ninja can become a pillar of the village in the future. Naruto, that guy, has only brute force. If he hadn't been good at talking, no one would know how he died. The ninjutsu test is to see how talented a person is. To see whether a person has talent, let him show a few ninjutsu and you will know. As for the third practical test, there is no need to say much. Those who understand will understand. Chapter 207. Sand, barren stones, weeds and cacti. The dull climate makes this place monotonous and boring. The occasional migratory birds can cause a commotion. A group of masked men, swords on their waists, walked silently on the road. There were also carts of supplies behind them, all covered with butter cloth, bulging and uneven. The leader was tall, with a long scar on his face, very personal. Lord Ibiki, according to the map, the destination is across this Gobi Desert, and it will take half a day to reach your base. Yes. Ibiki Morino responded silently, and behind him were none other than ninjas who were good at using swords, and they were uniformly given breathing methods according to the changes in chakra attributes. They were the Demon Slayer Corps secretly created by Kusuo Hitaki. They existed for only one purpose, that is, Kusuo Hitaki did some dirty and private things, among which collecting the source of chakra was the most important. No one knew that Kusuo Hitaki wanted to impact the bloodline network, and Ibiki Morino knew too little information to guess it at all. Everyone obeyed silently, and they did whatever the adults told them to do. They were carefully selected by Morino Ibiki from various underground organizations, war orphans, and scavengers on the orders of Hitaki Kusuo. Everyone was planted with the tongue eradication technique, and everyone was grateful and loyal to Hitaki Kusuo. Just like the former Hakuyo and Momochi Zabuza. The equipment behind was also the result of many years of research by the Konoha Anbu, chakra capturers and amplifiers. With these things, any tiny chakra source will not be missed. Along the way, they collected all kinds of strange treasures in the ninja world and filled the car. There are also many blood dragon eyes, red eyes, high-purity white eyes and sharing eyes lost in the ninja world. Kuroko, be alert, don't lose these things. Morino Ibiki found a half-grown boy with purple hair, who was a war orphan he rescued from the Hidden Mist village, the child of Mizunatsuki family. When he was rescued, he was already dumbfounded and couldn't remember his previous name. Ibiki Morino saw that his face was black, so he named him Kuroko. Don't worry, sir. I have recorded everything and sent sensory ninjas to guard nearby. Kuroko answered seriously, and only complained after Ibiki Morino walked away. It's such a remote place, how could anyone come here to rob? As soon as the voice fell, a gust of sand and dust suddenly rose in the distance. Thick yellow smoke rolled up. There are enemies. Instantly, all members of the Demon Slayer Corps were ready, took off their cloaks and drew their swords. Immediately, the swords flashed and the cold light flashed. Streamlined airflow began to wander over their bodies, thunder, water, wind blades, dust. There were no moon blades and big suns. Who is it? Kuroko stepped forward with a knife in hand and asked sternly. Morino Ibiki stayed behind without moving. Hee, I've been following them for more than half a month and finally arrived at this good place with the right time and right place. The ground suddenly cracked, and two grinning ninjas emerged from it, holding big swords and laughing wildly. More similar figures began to appear one after another behind them, staring at the supplies escorted by the Demon Slayer Corps, greedy like stupid villagers. Don't waste time talking to them, there is an order from above, and we must fight quickly and decisively. A figure wearing a bamboo hat emerged in the raging wind and yellow sand. His clothes were obviously different from those of the others. After saying this coldly, he turned into a gust of wind, whistling and sweeping towards the Demon Slayer Corps. Breathing of the wind type 1 dust whirlwind slashing. The Demon Slayer Corps standing at the front raised their mouths slightly, looking at the newcomers with confidence and full of pity. The knife in his hand lit up with a touch of green. Then, he rushed into these uninvited guests at high speed, leaving behind spiral wind blades all over the ground. The buzzing sound of the wind proved the sharpness of the blade. Breathing of the wind type 2 claw kodo wind. Perhaps it was because people of the same attributes acted together that the effect was better. Three companions stood up next to the Demon Slayer Corps member with breathing of the wind. Waving the green blade in his hand, 4 claw-shaped wind blades would bloom in the air with every swing. It was extremely powerful. Dang. 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 The sound of the slash hitting the metal continued to ring. This move, with an inexplicable rhythm, was to blow away all the nameless original sin wind. These guys are weird. The man who turned into a gust of wind and rushed towards the Demon Slayer Corps was forced back by the sword energy of the 4 wind-attributed Demon Slayer Corps. He had cold sweat on his forehead. He was just a hair away from being hit by these sword energies. The half-meter deep gully on the ground also showed how powerful their sword energy was. If a human body was hit head-on, it would definitely be torn into pieces immediately. Boss. My lord. His companions called out anxiously. They were also panicking. They had never seen such an incredible method. This kind of ninjutsu that can use the sword in hand to produce various attributes, I'm afraid it is not only the few remaining big families that have preserved the inheritance. And now, they are dressed in uniform, strictly enforce the rules, and everyone has a sword on their waist, which means that these people have all mastered this powerful ninjutsu. It seems that we have encountered a tough guy. The man showed a solemn look on his face. They are one of the black market ninjas hired by a big businessman. Their strengths are uneven, and there are no masters. Even he himself is just a special jonin. These rabble are gathered together, and although the number of people is impressive, they have a great psychological advantage against the Demon Slayer Corps with only 20 or 30 people. The crushing of 4 or 5 people is no joke. If it is a ninja war, it will definitely be a one-sided crushing. Even if the opponent has a real jonin, there is no need to be afraid. But now, he was destroyed at the beginning. Retreat. With a flash of thought, he immediately made the most favorable decision at the moment. Before he finished saying the word, retreat, his companions behind him dropped their weapons. The greedy, rampant and arrogant expressions when they just appeared were all thrown on the ground, like a dog that has lost its home, fleeing in panic. Sir, should we chase? Kuroko came to the side of Morino Ibiki, looking at these stray dogs with disdain. Morino Ibiki waved his hand calmly. He roughly understood the origin of the other party from the way he appeared. As expected, it was a mercenary composed of some defected ninjas from the Sand Village and the Rock Village. They usually committed crimes and burned, killed and looted when some bad merchants did so. It was probably an accident that they followed his team and took a fancy to the goods they were escorting. Let them go. Dealing with them is just a waste of time. Completing the orders issued by Lord Kusuo is the top priority. Ya. Chapter 208. Kuroko also put away his blade and looked at the few people who ran away. Kuroko has always executed Moriki Ibiki's orders unconditionally. Okay, keep on going and don't waste time. Moriki Ibiki glanced at everyone and continued to move forward. Kuroko nodded, waved his hand and said to the other members of the Demon Slayer Corps. Let's go. Let's continue. At the command, all the members of the Demon Slayer Corps took their luggage and continued on their way. This time, the group walked smoothly and did not encounter any enemies. Moriki Ibiki led the way in front, saying nothing along the way, just observing the surroundings vigilantly. Sir, should we change the way? Kuroko approached Ibiki and asked. With the appearance of the group just now, Kuroko was very worried that their itinerary would be exposed. No need to change the way. Senki Ibiki said in a deep voice. As for whether the itinerary will be exposed, that is for sure. After the battle just now, the group of stray dogs will definitely go back and spread the news. But because of this, Senki Ibiki dared to conclude that there would be no problem with their trip. These people will not have the courage to attack again. Senki Ibiki is a very good hand at human nature. There is still some awareness. Hurry up and get on the road. Senki Ibiki squinted his eyes and looked ahead vigilantly. As night fell, there was still a whizzing sound in the desert. The Demon Slayer Corps was taking advantage of the night to quickly travel in the desert. Then at this moment in the Hidden Rock village, the guards at the entrance of the village were looking outside vigilantly. With the invitation letter from the Land of Fire some time ago, some people have begun to arrive here with candidates in the past few days. In order to prevent the Konoha collapse plan from happening again, the Iwagakure village specially arranged a waiting area for the candidates. According to the requirements, all candidates must live here at night before the end of the exam. As for the daytime, it is relatively free. An exam has brought a lot of popularity to the Iwagakure village. When the candidates are not preparing for the exam, they will basically go to the Iwagakure village to stroll around. As a result, the originally quiet Sand Village has also gained a lot of popularity. Many of the originally depressed shops are now full of people. Sand Village, barbecue restaurant. 3 people are sitting in front of a table grilling meat. But from time to time, there are bursts of quarreling sounds. The diners around will also look at the farce here from time to time. Hey, Choji! Leave a piece for me. Ino slammed the table angrily. The plate of meat that was just put on was eaten up in the blink of an eye. It's delicious. Choji stuffed a large piece of grilled meat into his mouth with satisfaction, chewing and speaking. Shikamaru, why don't you eat? Shikamaru was holding a straw with a depressed look on his face. What a trouble. It's a good Chunin exam, but they asked us to come here to explore the way first. Shikamaru originally planned to take advantage of the Chunin exam to take a good lazy break. But he didn't expect that he would be called by Tsunade to perform a secret mission just before the exam. Explore the way to the Sand Village. Shikamaru looked at the street outside lazily. Shikamaru, don't you want to eat? Choji stared at the plate of meat in front of Shikamaru, salivating. Shikamaru was annoyed at the moment. How could he have the mood to eat? Take it, take it. Squeak. As soon as Shikamaru finished speaking, Choji started eating directly. Don't worry. Didn't we see this along the way? The Sand Village has strengthened its security. Let's report to the Hokage tonight. Ino also saw Shikamaru's worries and put down her chopsticks. Indeed, when the few people arrived at the Sand Village, the guards outside the Sand Village had been more than doubled. Entering the village, there were a few Sand Village ninjas mixed in among the crowds of people coming and going from time to time. Such guards are quite reassuring. Shikamaru looked at the crowded streets outside the window, but his eyes did not relax at all. I hope so. Seeing that Shikamaru's heart knot was untied, Ino was about to pick up a piece of meat, only to find that the barbecue that had just been put on was eaten up by Choji again. Hey! A quarrel sounded again, and Shikamaru shook his head helplessly. After dinner, Ino, Shika, and Cho came to an empty alley. Shikamaru wrote the current situation of Sand Village on a piece of paper and whistled. A bird flew down from the sky. Hurry up. Shikamaru tied up the letter and said. The bird seemed to understand, flapped its wings and flew directly to the office of the Hokage of Fire Country. At this moment, Tsunade was standing on the floor above the Hokage. In front of her was a group of about 30 or 40 guards. If you look closely, you will find that all of them are Jonin. Some of them are even elite Jonin. The night wind blew, making many people's clothes rustle. Gull. The sound of birds came from the sky, and Tsunade stretched out her hand, and the bird landed on her hand. After opening the letter, Tsunade nodded with a smile, and then looked up at everyone. with a wave of her hand. Let's go. Yes. The Jonin team made a loud voice. 40 or 50 students from Konoha, under the protection of the guards, began to move towards the sand village in the dark. Follow them, hurry up. Several Jonin kept reminding the students. The night deepened. The number of people walking on the streets of Sand Village began to decrease. Instead, there were the guard ninjas of Sand Village. The night wind blew, making people shiver. I say, will the Akatsuki organization really come? Kankuro looked around seriously. You still have to be more careful and don't forget Konoha. Tamari reminded from the side. Kankuro thought of Gaara and clenched his fists tightly. Help! In the silent night, screams came from the examination area. Along with the children's cries for help, a ball of fire suddenly burst out from the tents in the examination area in the distance. Boom! Another explosion. Oops! Go! Kanjuro narrowed his eyes and rushed to the examination area. On the way, screams were heard from time to time. These are all children who are not even Chunin. Who would attack them? Thinking of this, a trace of murderous intent burst out from Kanjuro's eyes. Kanjuro knew very well that Hitaki Kusuo must have his purpose in setting the Chunin in Sand Village this time. However, Kanjuro dared to be angry but did not dare to speak. Chapter 209. Ding ding. From time to time, the sound of shuriken colliding could be heard in the village. The explosion of the detonating tag was mixed with the screams of some examinees. At this moment, all the ninjas in the entire Sand Village had been the whole group went out to look for the mysterious invader. Quick! Seal off the village first! Kanjuro shouted, and everyone quickly sealed off all the exits of the village. Damn it! They started fighting before the exam. Kanjuro clenched his fists tightly. Although Kanjuro wanted to use puppetry to fight the invader with real swords and guns. But the invader has not been caught yet. How could there be an invader? Aren't other small countries banned from participating this time? Tamari held a fan and looked around nervously. It must be Konoha's doing. Kanjuro threw all the responsibility to Konoha. Just as he was about to speak, a figure flashed on the street of Sand Village. The people from Konoha haven't arrived yet. Hearing the familiar voice, Kanjuro was startled at first, and then stared at the figure. It was Hitaki Kusuo. Kankuro gritted his teeth, suppressed his anger, and shouted to a sand ninja running by. Report the battle situation. Report. No one died, more than 10 candidates were injured. 2 candidates are missing. A guard of Iwagakure is missing. The sand ninja originally planned to continue to support, but was really shocked by Kankuro's voice. But he still hurriedly reported the current battle situation in detail. Hearing this, Hitaki Kusuo was a little surprised. If only the candidates were missing, it must be Orochimaru's doing. It is estimated that this guy should not be willing to eat the 2 pillars for the time being, so he plans to find another container temporarily. Or maybe he has taken a fancy to 2 children and is ready to plant the curse seal. But how could the guard be missing? Is Orochimaru so hungry? Kankuro's eyes are always fixed on Hitaki Kusuo. He does not expect Hitaki Kusuo to help him solve the current crisis of Sand Village. Kanjuro now hopes that Gaara can return to the village as soon as possible. Nan. Just when Kanjuro was about to speak, the figure of Kusuo Hitaki suddenly disappeared. The village has gradually returned to peace. The places that were damaged by the explosion have now begun to be repaired. The injured candidates have also been sent to various hospitals with the help of medical ninjas. Asshole. Kanjuro was so angry that he stomped his feet on the ground. If he hadn't stayed in the village to take charge of the situation, he would have chased Kusuo Hitaki long ago. As for where Kusuo Hitaki went, Kanjuro and Tamari both felt it. In the forest outside the village, an extremely powerful chakra power was emanating. If there was really a problem, then the other party must be in the forest. I just don't know who can burst out such a powerful force. Kanjuro looked at the forest angrily, and Tamari was about to speak when she heard a cry for help beside her. Help me, there are still wounded here. Come on. Move this stone. Tamari looked around, gritted her teeth, jumped down, and began to help restore the rest area for the examinees. At this moment in the woods, Orochimaru and Kabuto Yakushi were fighting against a man in purple clothes. There was blood at the corner of the man's mouth. Lord Orochimaru, I will start to extract the Four Tails chakra. Kabuto Yakushi took out a series of equipment from a wooden box prepared on the side. Seeing this, Lao Zi frowned and was about to reach out to pull out a shuriken from the weapon bag. Suddenly, Kabuto Yakushi flashed in front of Lao Zi and hit Lao Zi in the chest. Lao Zi spit out a mouthful of blood with a puff. I've told you long ago, don't even think about resisting, you can't escape from Lord Orochimaru's grasp. Kabuto, hurry up, I can't help but want to feel the chakra of the four-tailed beast. Orochimaru's sinister voice sounded at the side. Orochimaru was also slightly interested in the chakra of each tailed beast. Orochimaru originally planned to absorb the chakra of the four-tailed beast and go to Itachi to exchange his Sharingan. But now it happened that Orochimaru and his body were rejecting each other, and he needed a lot of chakra to replenish it. You guys. As soon as Lao Zi was about to speak, Kabuto Yakushi pressed the instrument, and the chakra of the four-tailed beast began to be slowly drawn out of the body and flowed into a jar-like place. After all, Orochimaru didn't have an outer path demon statue, so it wasn't that easy to extract chakra. Zero, please give me flowers. After a long while, Lao Zi's consciousness began to become weaker and weaker. Finally, he couldn't support his body and fell straight down. Kabuto Yakushi quickly formed a seal on the side and sealed the jar with a layer of sealing technique. Then he raised his head. Looking at the unconscious Lao Zi, Kabuto Yakushi kicked Lao Zi to the side and turned to support Orochimaru. Lord Orochimaru, the chakra of the four-tail has been extracted. Let's go. Orochimaru looked at the jar and smiled sinisterly. Haha, great, with the chakra of the four-tail, I can get Itachi's eyes. Uchiha Itachi. Hehe. Orochimaru's eyes were full of greed. Zero. Before waiting when Orochimaru said the word, leave, his eyes suddenly tightened, and he quickly turned around and said to an uninhabited island. Come out. Hitaki Kusuo was too lazy to hide, and walked out of the darkness directly. Orochimaru's originally cold eyes had become somewhat desperate when he saw Hitaki Kusuo. He didn't have the confidence to snatch things from Hitaki Kusuo. Orochimaru felt an extremely strong killing intent from Hitaki Kusuo. Lord Orochimaru, please leave quickly. Kabuto Yakushi stood in front of Orochimaru. But Orochimaru didn't seem to have the intention to leave, and his eyes were fixed on Hitaki Kusuo. Leave the jar. Hitaki Kusuo said. Kusuo had no interest in Orochimaru and Kabuto Yakushi, a pair of good brothers. He couldn't kill Orochimaru yet, he still had the help of the two pillars. It's not the time yet. Besides, extracting the chakra of the four tails is not an easy task. Kabuto, let's go. Orochimaru's answer was beyond Kusuo's expectation. I thought that with Orochimaru's character, he would argue. But he agreed without saying anything. Watching the backs of Orochimaru and Kabuto Yakushi walking away, Kusuo always felt that this matter was not so simple. Especially when Orochimaru was leaving, he looked at the jar meaningfully. Kusuo felt that this matter must not be so simple. Chapter 210. However, Kusuo Hitaki didn't care. Anyway, it was useless to give him the chakra of the four tails. Kusuo Hitaki picked up the jar and glanced at the sand village in the distance. For the time being, there seemed to be nothing unusual in the village. Everything began to recover in an orderly manner after the attack by Orochimaru just now. Kusuo-kun. A tender voice came from the woods. Hearing the voice, Kusunoki's eyes softened a lot. Hinata, why are you here too? Kusuo hugged Hinata in his arms, smiled and stretched out his hand to gently scratch Hinata's nose. Hinata's originally fair face turned red. Fortunately, it was night and no one saw it. I'm worried about Kusunoki. Hinata lowered her head and pointed at her fingers. The people from Konoha have already arrived at Sand Village. Shien's voice came from the forest. Looking at the sweat on Xian's forehead, it was known that the two of them must have spent a lot of effort rushing here. Kusuo stretched out his hand again, hugged Xian, and gently pinched Xian's face. Let's go, I'll take you to the sand village to find a place to stay and rest. This time, Kusunoki has promised Kakashi that he will come to take charge of the Chunin exam. The appearance of Hinata and Xian can basically have a great deterrent effect. It just so happened that Kusuo had something else to do these days. Kusuo carried the jar, sandwiched between the two, and walked towards the direction of Sand Village. When they arrived at Sand Village, the people of Konoha were just walking towards the examination area of Sand Village. The seated contestants of Konoha arrived safely in Sand Village under the protection of the Konoha Jonin. Kusuo, you are really early. As Kusuo was walking, a familiar voice suddenly came from behind him. Come and find a place to stay first. Kusuo turned around and smiled at Kakashi as a greeting. Kakashi was going to say a few more words, but when he saw the two beauties on Kusuo's left and right, he still held back his words. The last time Kusuo hugged and kissed, he did it like this. When he thought of that scene, Kakashi shook his head helplessly. Well, I'll go get busy first. Kakashi quickly found one and turned away. Watching Kakashi's back, Kusuo also hugged Hinata and Xian and continued to walk into the village. Suddenly, Kusuo's eyes fixed on a dark place outside the village. Kusuo-kun, what's going on there? Hinata's voice suddenly pulled Kusuo back to his thoughts. Kusuo shook his head and said, It's okay, the person we're waiting for is here. Hinata blinked, although she didn't understand what Kusuo said. But Hinata believed that what Kusuo did must be right. Let's stay there in front. Hinata pointed to a hotel not far away, and several people quickly went to check in. After completing the formalities, Kusuo walked out with the jar of the sealing technique. The moon was high in the sky, and it was already the second half of the night. The Sand Village had experienced the previous disturbance, and although it was late at night, they still strengthened the village with more than double the number of troops. You would meet sand ninjas from the villages on the road wherever you went. Kusuo flashed and appeared directly at the entrance of a dark cave outside the Sand Village. Click. Kusuo casually threw the jar he brought on the ground. Come out. Kusuo sat cross-legged on the ground and shouted coldly. No response. Obito. I know you are here. Kusuo said coldly again, and this time, his tone was obviously much worse than last time. The darkness was still motionless. After a while, the space gradually distorted, and a figure appeared in the original place. It was Uchiha Obito. The arm that was cut off by Kusuo last time has been restored, but Obito's eyes are still fixed on Kusuo. Kusuo did not pull out the knife, but placed it next to Kusuo's hand. Kusuo. Obito looked at Kusuo vigilantly, but did not make a move. With the experience of last time, Obito already knew Kusuo's speed. With that speed, he could not avoid it with his strength. If he had not escaped in time last time, he might have died at his hands. It's for you. Kusuo picked up the knife and gestured to the sealing jar. But Uchiha Obito still stood there, looking at Hitaki Kusuo vigilantly. Uchiha Obito did not believe that Hitaki Kusuo would be so kind as to give him something zero. The chakra of the four-tailed beast, forget it. Hitaki Kusuo stood up, picked up the knife at hand, and left here directly. After Hitaki Kusuo left, Uchiha Obito looked down at the sealing jar. Although separated by the jar, the power revealed inside was obviously the chakra of the tailed beast. Uchiha Obito thought for a while, and entered his own space with the jar. Looking at the complicated sealing technique on it, Uchiha Obito made seals one after another. Break. A burst of black smoke rose slowly along the two sides of the sealed jar. Looking at this abnormal scene, Uchiha Obito took 2 steps back. In just a moment, a strong explosive force swept the entire space. Ah! Boom! Accompanied by a strong chakra power, the roar of the tailed beast suddenly resounded throughout the space. Seeing this scene in front of him, even Uchiha Obito stared at the scene in front of him. The white smoke dissipated, and a huge body appeared in front of Uchiha Obito. Four tails. A trace of surprise flashed in Uchiha Obito's eyes. It is obviously not a good idea to fight a runaway tailed beast in this space. Ouch! The four tails roared at Uchiha Obito, and its huge body began to rush towards Obito. Although Obito quickly dodged, there was still a hole on his clothes. Asshole! Uchiha Obito looked at the hole on his body. Kusuo, you bastard! Obito muttered angrily and disappeared from the spot. Four tails. Obito quickly came to the Outer Path Demon statue and quickly released the four tails. With the Outer Path Demon statue, the four tails struggled for a few times and was successfully absorbed by the Outer Path Demon statue. Hitaki Kusuo. Uchiha Obito clenched his fists tightly. 4. Hitaki Kusuo. Uchiha Obito found that he could not understand him more and more. Lord Orochimaru, the reaction of the four tails has disappeared. Yakushi Kabuto turned around and looked at Orochimaru. I know. Orochimaru turned his head to look at his desk. On the desk in front of him, there was a jar containing the four tails chakra. Chapter 211. Kabuto, let's go. Yes, Lord Orochimaru. Listening to Orochimaru's words, Kabuto quickly collected all the important jars in front of him. Following Orochimaru's footsteps, the two walked out of the hidden cave. The desert outside the sand village was full of wind and sand. When walking, even the vision in front of them was almost blocked. Orochimaru and Kabuto walked slowly in the desert. Although the two left a lot of footprints along the way, with the strong wind sweeping. The footprints just left will soon disappear in place. While Orochimaru walked, his eyes were looking into the distance. The deep snake pupils revealed a complex look. The strong wind was blowing all over the sky, and the two walked slowly towards the sand village. Lord Orochimaru, there is a waterfall ahead. Kabuto Yakushi looked back at Orochimaru. The corners of Orochimaru's mouth rose slightly, and several white snakes instantly rushed out from Orochimaru's sleeves and ran towards the direction of the waterfall. Let's go and meet Chiyo. Orochimaru took Kabuto Yakushi towards Chiyo's house. Chiyo is the strongest puppeteer in the Sand Village. If she is killed at this time, coupled with the grudge of controlling Gaara, the conflict between the Sand Village and Konoha will definitely break out completely. At that time, the Konoha collapse plan can be implemented again. The most important thing is that the Red Sand Scorpion relies on puppetry to transform his body into a puppet. Orochimaru is deeply interested in this technology. Killing Chiyo just happens to get the secret technique of the Sand Village puppetry. Sand Village, Cage Office Building. Today is the day when all candidates are officially called, and a group of children who look energetic are standing in front of the office building. Welcome everyone to the Sand Village. Kankuro said loudly from a high position in the office building. Chunin exam. Start now. The first day of the exam is a written exam, so there won't be any trouble. Hinata nervously turned around in the room. Hinata, stop turning around, I'm almost dizzy. Shion looked at Hinata with a confused look. But, Hanabi is taking the exam today, and I don't know if she will meet the same perverted examiner as before. When I think of Mori back then, Ki-ibiki, Hinata felt a chill all over her body. Kusuo was rushing to the side of Mori Ki-ibiki at this moment, and he didn't know what was about to happen in the Sand Village. Orochimaru and Kabuto Yakushi had already arrived at Chiyo's door. Since you're here, come in. Before Kabuto Yakushi pushed the door, Chiyo's voice rang out from inside the door. Orochimaru was not surprised. After all, Chiyo was a powerful puppeteer during the Second Ninja War. And she could easily control several puppets with just one hand. Orochimaru walked into the house, and Chiyo was sitting in front of a pond fishing. What's the matter? Orochimaru didn't say anything, but just smiled sinisterly. Shadow Snake Hand. A large number of white snakes suddenly rushed out of Orochimaru's sleeves and rushed towards Chiyo. Although Chiyo was old, she still had basic reaction speed. Bang! 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 The three scrolls were thrown out by Chiyo and turned into three puppets. A hint of approval flashed in Orochimaru's snake pupils. You are already old, but your reaction speed is so fast. Orochimaru. You actually want to kill me. Chiyo controlled the puppet and wrestled with Orochimaru's snake. Although Orochimaru's snake was extremely poisonous, Chiyo's puppets were well organized. Not a single poisonous snake could get close to him. Even a large number of poisonous snakes had died under Chiyo's puppet mechanism. Orochimaru rarely showed a trace of nervousness. Old man. Someone like you can actually control so many puppets. What a waste. Listening to Orochimaru's words, Chiyo sneered, waved his right hand, and the three puppets began to form a siege towards Orochimaru. Seeing that Orochimaru was about to die, Chiyo stretched out her hand and picked up the fish she had caught today. But the moment she stretched out her hand, Chiyo's face suddenly changed. Several white snakes crawled out of the fish basket. It was the ones that Orochimaru had sent out before. Chiyo's face gradually turned purple, and finally, Chiyo's body fell to the ground. Just when Orochimaru was about to be happy, suddenly there was a bang, and a puppet appeared next to Chiyo. Oh no! I've been tricked. When Orochimaru reacted, a puppet's dagger had already stabbed in front of him. With a puff, the bright red blood immediately spilled all over the ground. Lord Orochimaru. Yakushi Kabuto rushed to Orochimaru, but black blood flowed from the corner of Orochimaru's mouth. It was obviously poisoned to death. Chiyo's figure suddenly appeared in another corner of the room. Just as Chiyo was about to walk over, Orochimaru's dead body began to slowly wriggle. Like a snake shedding its skin, Orochimaru crawled out of the corpse's mouth. Seeing this scene, even Chiyo was speechless with shock. You, what on earth did you transform yourself into? Orochimaru was crawling on the ground, and several white snakes quickly crawled through the house. Just as Chiyo was preparing to fight, Orochimaru suddenly retreated. The other white snakes in the house quickly returned to Orochimaru. Hehe, the 10 kinmatsu are mine now. What? Chiyo was shocked and realized that not only the 10 kinmatsu were stolen, but also the scroll of puppetry was taken away by Orochimaru. Orochimaru. What do you want this kind of thing for? Aren't your research results enough? Chiyo manipulated the puppet to pounce on the two. Kabuto, let's go. With a bang, the bodies of Orochimaru and Kabuto Yakushi disappeared on the spot. You. Grandma Chiyo looked at the two who disappeared, but her body was shaking with anger. At this moment in the Sand Village, Uchiha Obito has obtained the power of the Four Tails. But Uchiha Itachi and Scorpion of the Red Sand still appeared on the high wall of the Sand Village. It happened to be the lunch break at this time, and the two of them stared at the place where everyone in Konoha village lived. This is the people of Konoha, right? Itachi, looking at this familiar forehead protector, do you miss it? Scorpion turned his head and looked at Uchiha Itachi. Uchiha Itachi seemed to have heard nothing, just put his hands together and walked into the village. Hurry up. The two began to walk into the Sand Village. When the two of them passed by, the ninjas who were originally guarding the entrance of the village fell down. All of them were caught in Uchiha Itachi's illusion. Chapter 212. After about half an hour of shift change, the ninjas on shift came to the gate and found something unusual. Quick! Be alert! Someone has sneaked into the village. Enemy invasion! Enemy invasion! A leading ninja immediately released a flare into the sky. A huge firework exploded in the air. Kanjuro and Tamari in the Sand Village immediately saw the flare. Something happened. Someone has sneaked into the village. Kanjuro looked at the direction of the flare with a serious look. That was the main gate of the Sand Village. This group of people was really brave. They chose the most conspicuous main gate to rush in. Tamari, you stay here, I'll take people to take a look. After the voice fell, Kanjuro called a few people to run towards the village entrance. When Kanjuro and his companions arrived at the door, they found that everyone here was motionless, as if they had been hit by some ninjutsu. Notify the guards immediately and strengthen the alert. Yes. A sand ninja immediately went back to make arrangements, while the remaining ninjas were responsible for waking up their companions who had fallen into a coma. Lord Kanjuro, should we notify them to stop the Chunin exam first? After hearing the question, Kanjuro also looked embarrassed. If the Chunin exam was stopped like this, it would inevitably affect the reputation of the Sand Village. However, now we have not even figured out who invaded and how many invaders there were. If we insist on taking the exam at this time, who knows what kind of danger may occur. Especially, the candidates this time are almost all the best in each village. If something goes wrong with them, the Sand Village will probably have to explain it to other villages. Immediately order the Chunin exam to stop, and all candidates return to the candidate area. Kanjiro frowned and looked at the entrance of the village. Damn it, they didn't even find anyone, and the whole army was wiped out. In addition to anger, there was also a hint of shock in Kanjiro's tone. What kind of enemy could hypnotize nearly 100 Jonin guards in an instant? Wake them up first, and ask them in detail later. Kanjiro glanced at a ninja next to him and ordered. The ninja nodded immediately, and turned around to wake up the sleeping ninjas. Asshole, you actually came to Sand Village at this time. Kanjiro jumped to the top of the cliff of Sand Village, looking down at the village. But his hands were tightly clenched. Ah! When Moriki Ibiki saw Hitaki Kusuo, he immediately stood up respectfully. Kusuo waved his hand, and Moriki Ibiki stood up. Master Kusuo, we found a place with extremely powerful chakra power. Kusuo took a scroll handed over by Moriki Ibiki and opened it to read. Grell ore. Kusuo's eyes fell on these words. Yes, Master Kusuo. Grell ore has extremely powerful mysterious power. We are not yet able to obtain the powerful chakra of Sugu. Kusuo did not mean to blame Moriki Ibiki. Grell ore itself contains powerful power, and it also has an extremely powerful sealing technique. However, it is not a simple matter to find this Grell ore. Kusuo remembered that in the original work, this Grell ore was in a very hidden place. And this kind of ore can not only change a person's body, but also the magical power contained in this Grell ore can make a person's body gain a longer life. The most important thing is the power contained in the power of Grell ore. Maybe it is a chakra with a new attribute. Maybe it is a variant of other chakras. Kusuo did not blame Moriki Ibiki, but just nodded and answered calmly. Well, you Demon Slayer Corps should hurry up a little bit. Moriki Ibiki nodded quickly. Yes, Lord Kusuo. Listening to Moriki Ibiki's words, Kusuo was also relieved. Kusuo was still clear about the power of the Demon Slayer Corps. When Kusuo was thinking about what Moriki Ibiki and others brought back to him, he suddenly felt the breath coming from the Sand Village. When he went out and saw that there was a firework in the sky above the entrance of the Sand Village. Lord Kusuo, the Sand Village should have been attacked by the enemy. This is the signal released when the village is invaded. Kusuo's eyes tightened, and his figure disappeared instantly. The attackers at this time were naturally the Red Sand Scorpion and Uchiha Itachi. Kusuo immediately began to worry about Hinata's safety. In the original work, the Red Sand Scorpion and Uchiha Itachi were after Gaara's tailed beast. Are they also after the Grirka ore? A question arose in Kusuo's heart. In just a few breaths, Kusuo had already reached the outskirts of the Sand Village. Kusuo stood on a high cliff, overlooking the entire Sand Village. The Sand Village has now entered a wartime state. On the entire street, armed ninjas can be seen everywhere. Safe. There's no problem here. The ninjas of the Sand Village reported their situation from time to time. How could this happen? Kusuo searched the village, but he didn't find Uchiha Itachi. Hinata. The next second, Kusuo's body suddenly came to Hinata's room. Hinata just came out of the bathroom, and water was dripping from her wet hair. Hinata's face gradually turned red when she suddenly saw Kusuo appear in front of her. Finally, it was as red as a small apple. Hinata. What's wrong with you? Kusuo quickly put down his knife, stepped forward and touched Hinata's forehead. Hinata was very shy because she had just come out of the bathroom. After Kusuo touched her forehead, her face became even redder. Finally, it was like boiling water. The whole body fell straight backwards. Fortunately, Kusuo was very fast and caught Hinata in one hand. He gently put her on the bed and covered her with a blanket. After finishing all this, Kusuo walked to the window and looked outside. There were still teams of ninjas running on the street outside. But Kusuo knew very well that it was wishful thinking to catch Uchiha Itachi with the strength of these people. It was also mentioned that there was Scorpion of the Red Sand by his side. Kusuo was thinking about how to find out about Uchiha Itachi and the others, when suddenly there was a knock on the door. Lord Kusuo, it's me. Hearing the voice, Kusuo hurried over and opened the door. The person who came was Kuroko. Inside the room, Hinata was still covered with a blanket on the bed and was dizzy and hadn't woken up yet. Kusuo didn't have any taboos. Chapter 213. What's wrong? Lord Kusuo, Chiyo of the Sand Village was attacked by Orochimaru, and even the 10 Kinmatsu were taken away. Hitaki Kusuo was a little surprised. Orochimaru had always been researching various scientific and technological achievements by himself. I've never heard that he's interested in puppetry. Hitaki Kusuo nodded after listening, and then walked to the window and looked outside. But Kuroko didn't seem to leave after he finished speaking. What's wrong? Kusuo looked back at Kuroko. Kuroko took out a parchment map from his arms. Master Kusuo, this is a map I accidentally got before. If my guess is correct, the location recorded should be the location of the Grayer mine. Kusuo was a little surprised when he heard this. Kusuo looked at Kuroko's map carefully for a while. While looking at the map, suddenly, the door of the house was pushed open. Shion walked in from outside. As soon as she entered the house, Shion immediately became nervous when she saw Kuroko, and then looked at the parchment map in Hitaki Kusuo's hand. Shion also guessed most of it. Why is it here? Shion glanced at the location indicated by the map. Do you know this place? Kusuo looked at Shion with a hint of expectation in his eyes. Shion nodded and pointed out on the map. This place has a very strong seal. I have felt it before. Kusuo was quite satisfied when he heard this. Shion was already proficient in sealing techniques, so it was normal for her to feel the seal nearby. I see, I didn't realize you were so powerful. Hitaki Kusuo stretched out his hand and gently scratched Shion's nose. Hinata, this little fool, is a little dizzy again, help me take care of her. Shion looked at Kusuo reluctantly, but still nodded obediently. Seeing Shion's gentle side, Hitaki Kusuo stepped forward and walked to Shion's side, and gently kissed Shion's little face. Thank you for your hard work. At this point, Kuroko had already turned his face away. If it weren't for the identity of Hitaki Kusuo, Kuroko really wanted to severely condemn this kind of public display of affection. Kuroko, let's go. Hitaki Kusuo hung up his knife and led the way out. Hearing Hitaki Kusuo's serious voice, Kuroko quickly nodded to Shion as a farewell. Then he trotted out of the house and followed Kusuo. Kusuo glanced at the cage office building of the Sand Village. Now Hanabi and the other candidates are inside, and the Sand Village has sent the strongest guard team to guard here. Looking at this scene, Kusuo was relieved. Swoosh. Two sounds of breaking through the air, two figures quickly ran towards the outside of the Sand Village. It was Hitaki Kusuo and Kuroko. Lord Kusuo, I have informed Lord Ibiki that the Demon Slayer Corps will also come to support. Yes. Hitaki Kusuo just nodded and continued on his way. The location marked on the map was not close, and it would probably take about half a day to get there. Only the next day did Kusuo stop. Kuroko, who was following behind, saw Kusuo stop and finally sat down on the ground. While wiping his sweat, he looked at Hitaki Kusuo. Master Kusuo, we should be almost there. Although Kuroko handed the map to Kusuo, he had already obtained the map before. At that time, Kuroko thought it was some secretary's treasure, but now he knew that it was actually the remains of a lost civilization. Kuroko looked at the map and then at the surrounding scene. The two of them were surrounded by mountains and ridges. And the altitude of their location was so high that they could even see faint clouds and mist around them. Although Shion was not there, Kusuo could still conclude that this must be the sealed place. Kuroko stretched out his hand and gently placed it on the ground. Sure enough, he immediately felt a strong force. It's just that these forces seemed to be suppressed by something. They couldn't move at all. After a long while, Kusuo Hitaki finally saw the other members of the Demon Slayer Corps. Lord Kusuo. Ibiki Moriki saluted Kusuo Hitaki. How is it? Kusuo Hitaki said. Lord Kusuo, we have checked the area. We found a cave. There is no mechanism inside the cave. We haven't entered yet. After listening, Kusuo Hitaki nodded with satisfaction. He calculated the time at the beginning, and he began to understand the speed of Moriki Ibiki and others. After such a long time, they must have explored the surroundings before coming here. Let's go. Let's take a look. Hitaki Kusuo took a knife and walked towards the cave. Moriki Ibiki followed closely, and the few people soon arrived at the entrance of the cave. The cave kept blowing gusts of cold wind to the outside. But what made people feel strange was that the wind was very comfortable when blowing on the body. Even the hidden injuries on the body began to recover gradually. It seems that the legend that grayer ore can heal wounds and prolong life is not an exaggeration. Hitaki Kusuo walked into the cave, and there was a different world inside the cave. After walking for about a few minutes, the few people came to a wide hall. The hall looked no different, but the walls around were carved with mysterious totems. And the ground of the entire hall was covered with mysterious patterns formed by small grooves. Lord Kusuo, this place should be the seal of the grayer ore. Moriki Ibiki squatted down and put his hand on the ground, feeling the seal coming from the ground. Lord Kusuo, if you want to remove the seal, it may take some effort. Moriki Ibiki looked at the ground solemnly. These gullies are designed to allow some liquid to flow. If it is not guided by blood, it is guided by chakra. No matter which of the two, it is not an easy task. The seal array here is so huge that it is definitely not something that can be broken by a few people. Get out of the way. Hitaki Kusuo's voice sounded behind Moriki Ibiki. Moriki Ibiki quickly stood up and led the Demon Slayer Corps to retreat. Sun breathing. Lord Kusuo, are you going to use brute force to open this seal array? This seal array is so sophisticated. I'm afraid. Boom. The whole hall was suddenly filled with smoke. The seal formation that seemed to be strong and unbreakable was broken into pieces. Chapter 214. Looking at this scene, Kuroko swallowed his saliva. Is this the strength of Master Hitaki Kusuo? The power of the sun breathing was so strong. At this moment, the members of the Demon Slayer Corps were not only shocked by Hitaki Kusuo, but also more loyal and admired him. The rumbling sound lasted for a long time. The originally flat platform was now shattered into debris on the ground. A green and soft force gradually began to reveal from the cracks in the ground. With the seal lost, it seems that the energy of the grail ore has been completely released. Morimi Ibiki began to direct everyone to use containers to collect the scattered ore. While several people were busy, an emerald green stone appeared in the middle of the entire palace. The stone looked the size of an egg and was green all over. The originally violent and complex ore atmosphere in the entire palace became much gentler at this moment. At the same time, they came towards the ore. This should be the legendary heart of Grill ore. Morimi Ibiki said in a deep voice. In his early years, when he was just a ninja, he once participated in a search for the heart of Grill ore. Only when the concentration of Grill ore reaches a certain level can it form a bead-sized thing under repeated pressure. If such a thing is produced, the power of the entire Grill vein will be concentrated on this ore. Hitaki Kusuo and others began to look for other traces of the ruins here, and did not notice that there was also a person outside the cave walking into the cave. Grill ore. Yes, this is Grill ore. A well-dressed man came over. However, Hitaki Kusuo still had some impression of this person. This is actually a big liar. His name is Hyde. Usually, he always talks about creating a new world, but in fact, it is all for the purpose of getting Grill ore. This. Hyde seemed particularly excited. This is actually the heart of ore. Who on earth dares to snatch the heart of ore from me? Hyde took off his clothes, revealing his strong muscles. At this moment, Hyde had completely lost his previous posture and had become completely arrogant. Lord Kusuo. Ibiki Moriki was very alert. When Hyde and his friends walked in here, they immediately spotted the other party. Oh. Hyde looked at everyone with a proud face. It was as proud as a true god looking at mortals. This look made Kusuo Hatake a little unhappy. Who are you? Kusuo Hatake looked at the other party's clothes, which were clothes he had never seen before. And the few people were not wearing red fire cloud coats. It can be seen that these people should not be members of the Akatsuki organization. Who are they? Kusuo Hatake frowned. Hyde was wearing a glove on his hand. Since he entered the palace, he has absorbed a lot of the atmosphere in the palace. This is from Lord Kusuo. Kuroko felt a little unhappy when he saw this, and he drew his sword and went straight to have to rush over. Just as Kuroko rushed out, Hyde raised a sly smile. Do it. Hyde looked at the others arrogantly, and three figures immediately rushed towards Kuroko. Kuroko, who had already jumped up, couldn't find a foothold in the air for a while, and was beaten back a few meters by the three people. Kuroko. Moriki Ibiki stood in front of Kuroko and looked up and down at Hyde and the others. At this moment, Hyde and the other four were already standing on the ground, and the person who had just taken action was looking at Moriki Ibiki with pride. Master Hyde, I will take the ore heart for you now. Camilla, who turned into a bat, saluted Hyde and walked towards the ore heart. Stop. Kuroko held the ground and scolded. Hatake Kusuo was not in a hurry, but just sat there quietly, watching the scene in front of him. This moment is an opportunity for Kusuo Hatake. An opportunity to test the strength of several people. The four people of Hyde have been equipped with the essence of Grelka ore. Therefore, in this palace, Hyde's strength should not be underestimated. Several members of the Demon Slayer Corps have drawn their swords from behind. Just when Moriki Ibiki was about to speak, Hyde behind him suddenly spoke. Go, Camilla, let them see the power of Grelka ore. After speaking, Camilla looked back at Hyde with a grateful face. Yes, Lord Hyde. Moriki Ibiki stared at Camilla. It seemed that Hyde must have brainwashed them a lot. Seeing this, the other two people around Hyde also walked towards the Demon Slayer Corps. The bodies of the two began to change at the same time. One of them actually became more burly. And his strength seemed to be stronger. As for the other person, his body began to grow hair, and he turned into a half-human, half-beast. The three of them rushed towards the Demon Slayer Corps quickly, but Kuroko and the others were not worried at all. Ibiki Moriki looked at Kuroko and then at Kusuo Hatake. He immediately understood Kusuo Hatake's deep meaning. He was giving them a chance to test their strength. With the enhancement of the grayer ore, the bodies of the three were exceptionally strong. And ordinary wounds would recover immediately. Hyde stood in the distance, his body gradually turning black. That was because he absorbed a lot of grayer energy. Kusuo Hatake looked at the few people, and at this moment, Kuroko's body recovered slightly. It seems that if there is no help from grayer ore here, it is not an easy task to simply absorb the power here. The heart of grayer ore in the palace has gradually turned green. From Hyde's greedy eyes, it can be seen that the power of the heart of the ore, the ephedrine one, is about to be absorbed. Lord Kusuo. Kuroko glanced at Kusuo Hatake and held the blade tightly in his hand. At this moment, the three people in front of him had already moved. Three figures as strong as beasts rushed to the front of the Demon Slayer Corps in an instant. Kuroko stretched out his hand very skillfully to stab, but the opponent was not hurt after a knife. In a few breaths, the wound on the opponent's body was restored to its original state. Seeing this scene, Kuroko also realized the seriousness of the problem. They recover very quickly, and only a faster knife can hurt them. Moriki Ibiki said in a deep voice. Chapter 215. After hearing this, Kuroko seemed to have found a suitable way. The other members of the Demon Slayer Corps also started a combined attack on the three people. Sure enough, only under the rapid killing, the opponent would be injured. However, here, even with the strength of the Demon Slayer Corps, it is a bit difficult to deal with them. Damn it, these guys are endless. Kuroko's body retreated again. The three people in front of him recovered again and again, becoming stronger again and again. As long as we are on this grayer ore vein, it seems that it will not be so easy to kill them. Kuroko swung his sword forward several times in succession. However, it did not cause any big problems for Camilla and the other two. Hitaki Kusuo has been watching this scene quietly. In his heart, he did not mean to blame Kuroko. After all, in the original book, it was Naruto who condensed the energy of grayer ore into a Rasengan like crazy. Only then did he kill Hyde. Before, even if Naruto smashed Hyde to pieces, Hyde still immediately returned to normal. He was not affected at all. Go! Kuroko gritted his teeth and waved his hand to lead the other members of the Demon Slayer Corps to attack at the same time. Hitsi was so eager to win that he didn't notice that Camilla's body had flashed behind him. Seeing this, Moriki Ibiki quickly drew out the blade at hand and wanted to help. But at this moment, Hitsi was too far away and couldn't help at all. Just when everyone thought that Kuroko would definitely fall to Camilla's hands this time, a blade chopped over. Poof. Ellipsis. Camilla's body was chopped into pieces. Breath of the Sun. Hitaki Kusuo actually took action himself for the first time. After getting rid of the crisis, Kuroko looked at Hitaki Kusuo with an apologetic look. However, the other two women brought by Hyde looked at each other. They both gave up their original goal and rushed towards Hitaki Kusuo. Ah! One of the huge women roared, and the other took the opportunity to rush towards Hitaki Kusuo's body. You are overestimating yourself. Hitaki Kusuo muttered. The other woman jumped up and jumped directly. One from above and the other from below, they started to attack Hitaki Kusuo at the same time. The two's fists were mixed with lightning and hit Hitaki Kusuo's body. However, an interesting scene happened. The two's originally powerful attacks were all hit on the broken seal formation. What? Hitaki Kusuo appeared behind the two men in an instant and swung his sword. With just one blow, one of them fell to the ground immediately, her head and body separated. The essence of the grayer ore on her body had been chopped into pieces, and there was no trace of the original appearance. Hyde frowned when he saw this scene. Most of the elite soldiers he had trained for many years had been lost at this moment, leaving only the last one. What kind of power is this? How can it be stronger than my power? Rank, the last one left, looked at his hands in disbelief. Hyde once taught her that as long as you have faith in your heart, your power is infinite. But today, two of his companions died in front of him one after another. Why? Why is this happening? Rank clenched his hands tightly, and just when he was about to launch a full-strength attack on Hitaki Kusuo, a scolding sounded behind him. Rank, come back. The person who spoke was Hyde. Seeing his generals die one after another, Hyde finally couldn't bear it. However, this kind of pity is not pity for his subordinates. It is just a simple kind of cheap pity, just like pity for a dog beside him. After hearing Hyde's voice, Rank was stunned for a moment, and then he quickly stepped back a few steps to make way for Hyde. Mr. Hyde. There was even a trace of worry in Rank's eyes. Looking at this scene, Kusuo Hitaki actually began to sympathize with Rank. The time for several people to be brainwashed is really a bit too long. Hyde's body moved instantly. After being strengthened by such a rich Greg ore, Hyde's body has reached an unprecedented level of strength. A powerful breath burst out from his body. Looking at this scene, Kusuo Hitaki secretly rejoiced in his heart. Hyde's strength is getting stronger and stronger now. I don't know if such an opponent can bring some task improvements to himself. It would be great if he could be stronger. Kusuo Hitaki was a little disappointed with Hyde's strength. Hyde's current strength is not very strong, at most it is not easy to be killed. But in terms of attack power, compared with Uchiha Obito, it is not just a little bit worse. It was the contemptuous look of Hitaki Kusuo that completely angered Hyde. How dare you despise me? Hyde roared and exerted force with both feet at the same time. Two deep pits were trampled out on the ground because of this force. With a bang. Hyde's body was like a cannonball, and it was ejected straight from the spot. The next second, Hyde's fist had hit Hitaki Kusuo. Hitaki Kusuo did not dodge. This punch contained more than just ordinary physical skills. It also had the unique power of the grayer mind. Too weak. Hitaki Kusuo slowly said these three words. With a bang. Hitaki Kusuo slammed Hyde's body heavily on the ground. Hyde's body was instantly smashed to pieces in several places. However, with the help of the grayer mind, the wound quickly recovered. You. Hyde looked up again and found that it was the scabbard of Kusuo Hitaki that hit him. You didn't even pull out the knife. How arrogant. Hyde stood up. At this moment, his body had become taller with the help of the grayer mind. Your strength is not worthy of me pulling out the scabbard. Kusuo Hitaki said, pulling out the knife, and then thrusting the blade into the ground. He only held a section of the scabbard in his hand and gestured to stretch out his hand. Come on. Hyde stared at Kusuo Hitaki tightly, his hands clenched tightly together. This is an insult. It is a great shame. He, Hyde, travels all over the country on weekdays, and people respect him very much. Besides, his strength is also very strong outside. In addition, now that he is on the grayer mine, under the watering of power, it is not an exaggeration to say that he has reached the level of shadow. After all, with an endless supply of chakra and a nearly immortal body, it would not be so easy to deal with anyone. However, when Hyde was about to take action, he regretted it. Chapter 216. Kusuo's strength far exceeded Hyde's imagination. Damn. Hyde's body rushed at the moment of attacking Kusuo. Hyde felt that Kusuo left a shadow in front of him. Bang. A heavy blow came from the back of Hyde's head, and Hyde felt that he was hit so hard that the sky was dark. If it weren't for the power of the grayer ore in Hyde's body, just the blow from Kusuo Hitaki would have been enough to kill him here. After the blow, Kusuo Hitaki didn't launch a second attack immediately. Hand over the things on you, and I can consider sparing your life. Kusuo Hitaki slowly walked to Hyde's side, stretched out his hand and picked Hyde up. Although Hyde was not a good person, Kusuo Hitaki was still quite interested in the grayer book in Hyde's hand. I won't. Hyde exerted all his strength and punched Kusuo Hitaki hard. But Kusuo Hitaki had already discovered Hyde's plan and dodged it with a flash. With you. Kusuo's voice sounded coldly beside Hyde's ears. Kuroko, who was standing by, cast a sympathetic look at Hyde at this moment. Hitaki Kusuo could kill a village with his own strength. At this moment, there was only Hyde in front of him. Hyde wanted to find another suitable opportunity to continue the sneak attack, but when Hyde was about to turn around, he found that an extremely powerful force was pressing him down. The next second, Hyde knelt directly on the ground. Even at this moment, Hyde had no room to fight back. Under such a strong force, the black on Hyde's body gradually faded, and he returned to the appearance of a normal person. And the glove originally worn on Hitaki Kusuo's hand began to break gradually. Grill ore. My grill ore. Hyde looked at grill ore with reluctance, but no matter how Hyde tried to twist his body, the powerful force pressing on him did not relax at all. At this point, Hyde finally realized that his strength was so weak. Oh, I surrender. Hyde shouted at Kusuo Hitaki. Kusuo Hitaki then slowly took back the power he had released. Conditions. After hearing this, Hyde frowned and reluctantly took out a book from his pocket. The Book of Grayer. This is the book. If you are willing to give it to me, I can give it to you unconditionally. After hearing Hyde's words, Kusuo Hitaki reached out and took the Book of Grayer. Kusuo Hitaki simply flipped open the Book of Grayer and took a look. There are many ninjutsu recorded in this Book of Grayer, and most of them are related to the Grayer or where they are. Lord Kusuo, I have heard of the Book of Grayer. If possible, I suggest you stay. Listening to Kuroko's words, Kusuo frowned, but still did not kill Hyde. Kusuo Hitaki took the Book of Grayer and simply flipped through a few pages. There are almost many human ninjutsu recorded on it. In just a few breaths, Kusuo Hitaki had memorized the Book of Grayer. The three women Kusuo Hitaki had seen before had undergone the transformations in this book. In addition, the Grayer ore transformed their bodies. Fortunately, this book didn't fall into the hands of Orochimaru. Kusuo Hatake even felt a little fortunate. If the thing fell into the hands of that guy, he would have to trouble Orochimaru. Although Kusuo Hatake was not afraid of its power. But Kusuo Hatake was not willing to have a head-on collision with him. However, the bead floating in the air before had absorbed all the power of the grayer ore. The entire jade pendant emitted a bright green light. Kusuo Hatake looked at the book of grayer in his hand, and then at the emerald green stone that appeared in front of him. After he stretched out his hand, the whole stone gently floated towards Kusuo Hatake's palm. When Kusuo Hatake held the whole stone in his palm, he felt that his body was transformed from the inside out by the majestic power contained in the stone. The whole palace was silent at this moment, and no one spoke. Even Hyde, who fell to the ground, stayed quietly on the ground at this moment, and had no intention of getting up and moving forward. Kusuo Hatake finally understood why so many people were interested in this stone. This stone actually contained such an interesting power. You go and clean up here briefly, and see if there is anything else to take away. After saying this, Kusuo Hatake walked towards the entrance of the cave alone. Without the pressure from Kusuo, Hyde finally stood up. Asshole! Hyde roared, and Hyde and his last Deadpool jumped into the abyss at the same time. A strong green light burst out from the abyss. Kusuo had already walked to the entrance of the cave. Feeling this powerful force, Kusuo dodged and a strong air wave rushed out of the cave. Are you still not giving up? Hatake Kusuo said softly. Suddenly, a figure appeared behind Hatake Kusuo. Hatake Kusuo just held the scabbard and waved it casually. Boom with a loud bang. Hagrid's body was smashed into the forest nearby. The power of the grayer ore was rekindled, and Hagrid slowly climbed out of the deep pit. The damage originally caused by the heavy blow has now been fully restored. Ah! Hagrid roared and rushed towards Kusuo Hatake. Puff! In just a moment, Hagrid's body was cut into two pieces by Kusuo Hatake. Kusuo Hatake stretched out his hand, and the power of the grayer ore was instantly absorbed into the green jade in Kusuo Hatake's hand. Looking at the fallen body of Hyde, Kusuo just glanced at it and turned away. Current roll, 82%. Looking at the display of the system, Kusuo Hatake just stood in the distance. It seems that this experience is really hard to get. Kusuo Hatake began to rush towards the direction of the sand village. There is no news about the whereabouts of Uchiha Itachi and the Red Sand Scorpion for the time being. However, this grayer ore can be given to Hinata. It would save her from blushing and fainting all the time. It was almost night when Kusuo Hatake returned to Hinata's house. When Kusuo Hatake came to the door, he suddenly heard the conversation inside the house. The two people who stayed with Shion had not slept yet and were waiting for him. Kusuo Hatake put away his usual stern face, put on a smile, and knocked gently on the top of the door. After hearing the sound, Shion immediately ran to open the door. Chapter 217. Kusuo, you are finally back. Shion threw himself on Kusuo Hatake. Kusuo Hatake was about to speak when another figure suddenly threw himself on him. Shion, you. Kusuo Hatake didn't know when Shion started to become particularly clingy. How are you today? He took the initiative to reach out and touch Shion's forehead gently. Are you feeling better? Fortunately, it was dark now and the lights were not on. So Kusuo Hatake did not notice that Shion's cheeks had begun to turn slightly red. When Shion thought of the embarrassing things that happened during the day, she immediately became uneasy. By the way, this thing is for you. Kusuo Hatake took his grayer ore from his arms and put it in Shion's palm. What is this? Shion played with the green stone in her palm with a puzzled look. But when Shion's hands tightly clasped the stone together, Shion was surprised to find that the stone had actually changed her body. How do you feel? Kusuo Hatake looked at Shion, and the expression on Shion's face looked a little painful. After a while, the expression on Shion's face slowly returned to normal. It seems that Shion's body may have been hurt before. After hearing this, Kusuo Hatake looked at Shion beside him with a surprised look. In Kusuo Hatake's memory, Shion should not have been hurt, but today Shion's body has old injuries. Do you know what kind of injury Kusuo Hataki suffered? Shie shook his head gently. I don't know. The injury that Sister Shion suffered should be very serious. But it feels a bit like the Star Ninja Village. After hearing the name of the Star Ninja Village, Kusuo Hataki frowned immediately. This small city brought a lot of trouble to Naruto and the other three in the original work. Kusuo Hataki didn't expect that this time the trouble would fall on him. You stay here to take care of Shion, I'll be back soon. After saying this, Kusuo Hataki prepared to walk out of the house. But Shion knew him well before, so Shie quickly knew that he must go to the Star Ninja Village to cause trouble. Although the Star Ninja Village is not big, it also has strong guards. Especially there is a meteorite from outer space in the village. Kusuo Hataki immediately formed a seal with one hand, and after a while, the members of the Demon Slayer Corps successfully gathered together. Master Kusuo, please give me your orders. The leader, Ibiki Moriki, greeted respectfully. Now I will arrange for you to go to the Star Ninja Village immediately to check. See what is going on there. Someone dared to poison Shion. Yes. After the voice fell, several figures disappeared from Kusuo Hataki's house in an instant. Shion still held the stone tightly in her hand, and the green power revealed in the stone continued to surge in Shion's body. It can be seen that the power of this grail ore has not been fully exerted. After about 3 or 5 days, the members of the Demon Slayer Corps finally sent a message back to Kusuo Hataki. Kusuo Hataki stretched out his hand and opened the scroll they sent back. The scroll clearly marked the route they took to find the Star Ninja Village this time. From this route, we can tell that the location of their Star Ninja Village has changed. According to Kusuo Hataki's memory in the original work, the location of their Star Ninja Village should be easy to find. But at this moment, on the map marked by the Demon Slayer Corps, the location of the Star Ninja Village is very remote and difficult to find. When I think of the bed seeing the sick Shion, Kusuo Hataki's eyes immediately burst out with murderous intent. They must want to seal something. After hearing Shion's voice, Kusuo Hataki looked at Shion with a surprised face. What do you mean? Shion stretched out her hand and tapped a few points on the scroll. These positions can just form a sealing formation. I don't know what they are sealing, but looking at this sealing formation, it should be almost the same as the one that sealed the monsters. When he heard about the monsters, Kusuo Hataki frowned. It's a disaster if there is one monster in the world, how can there be a second one? Shion also shook her head gently. I don't know about that. My main responsibility at the time was to protect the sealing formation. Hanabi, can you take care of your sister here? Kusuo Hataki slowly walked in front of Hanabi and touched her head. Hanabi nodded heavily. Don't worry, no matter what happens this time, I will definitely protect my sister. After hearing this, Kusuo Hataki was relieved. Kusuo gently patted Shion's shoulder. Hoshigaki Village. Let's go. Shion and Kusuo rushed to the Hoshigaki village under the cover of night. With Kusuo Hataki's strength, it took them much less time to reach the Hoshigaki village than the Demon Slayer Corps. After about 2 days, Kusuo Hataki and Shion arrived at the outskirts of the Hoshigaki village. Kusuo Hataki stood in the woods and observed the Hoshigaki village in front of him. They really did have some moves. Shion looked ahead vigilantly. Even from what Shion saw at the moment, it was clear that there were many Jonin and Chunin outside the Hoshigaki village. And they also had a trace of pulling a huge thing. It's just that I don't know what kind of thing it is that left such a deep gully on the ground. This gully should be caused by the U from the Star Ninja Village. Hataki Kusuo said softly. Kusuo-sama. The voice of Moriki Ibiki suddenly sounded behind Hataki Kusuo. Yes. After observing for the past few days, we can probably infer that Lady Shion should be contaminated with the power of the Star Ninja Village meteorite. After hearing this, Hataki Kusuo narrowed his eyes, and his eyes occasionally burst out with a fierce murderous aura. I am still in a coma, and I don't know what these people have done to me. Kusuo's hands were clenched tightly, as if they would fall on the enemy in the next second. There are many cases of this situation. Basically, they are people who have come into contact with the Star Ninja Village. Kuroko added. Kusuo immediately became interested. Many cases. Isn't it clear that their star ninja village is going to go against all countries? No wonder they moved to this place where no one lives now. Everything seemed to make sense in an instant. It is said that the plan has recently gained very powerful power. The current star ninja village has begun to prepare to crush the 5 major countries. Hitaki Kusuo looked at the star ninja village with an angry face. As for what their star shadow was going to do, it had nothing to do with Hitaki Kusuo. It was just that star shadow hurt Shion. Chapter 218. You wait here first, I'll go to the village to take a look. Hitaki Kusuo left this sentence, and then he sneaked into the village alone with a knife. There were not many people on the streets of the village at this moment. Hitaki Kusuo chose a suitable place and secretly observed everyone's actions in the village. After some feelings, Hitaki Kusuo found a place that shocked her. Originally, it was not easy to find a senior ninja in the Star Ninja Village. But looking at the current Star Ninja Village, almost all students have reached this level. What is going on with this Star Ninja Village? Hitaki Kusuo murmured. In the original work I have read before, the star shadow here is not only not that strong, but also directly killed by others. But looking at the star shadow now. Hitaki Kusuo is now in the Star Ninja Village, but Hitaki Kusuo can clearly feel that in a place outside the village, there is a strong force flowing into the village. But Hitaki Kusuo has no interest in these things. Hitaki Kusuo now just wants to get this meteorite and then destroy it, so that the curse on Shion can be completely lifted. Although Hitaki Kusuo is very powerful now. But Hitaki Kusuo knows very well that it is better for the Star Ninja Village to be a ninja village and not to hurt innocent people. However, this village is different from other villages. The area of the Star Ninja Village is very small. If the real thing comes, the villagers here will probably suffer. Hitaki Kusuo began to look for information about the meteorite in the village. Quickly send more people to the training room. Yes. The 2 ninjas answered immediately after hearing the voice. Following the conversation between these people, Hitaki Kusuo could probably guess that the meteorite he wanted to find should be in a place called the Training Master. He walked forward with his lover and found that in a very hidden cave, a sphere with purple chakra was found on the side. It looks like this is it. He closed his eyes and carefully felt the power contained in his body. Sure enough, Kusuo Hitaki soon discovered that there was a trace of Shion's mark on this thing. Asshole. Kusuo Hitaki cursed. But it was precisely because of Kusuo Hitaki's words that the guarding ninjas on the opposite side discovered his existence. Kusuo Hitaki carefully felt the people inside. Except for the 2 leaders who had super shadow level strength, the strength of the others was basically only important in the upper ninja level. But what surprised Kusuo Hitaki was that through their bodies, Kusuo Hitaki could feel their bodies and could not easily control such a strong force. Who are you? Why did you come to this place? Xingying had not seen Kusuo Hitaki a few times, and he didn't know Kusuo Hitaki's identity. Remove the mark of the meteorite with others immediately. Kusuo Hitaki said coldly. But what Hitaki Kusuo didn't expect was that Xingying sneered after hearing it. Why should I listen to you? After saying that, a strong chakra burst out from Xingying's body. Hitaki Kusuo didn't want to get too entangled with them. After all, this meteorite can affect Shion now. Even though Shion now has the grayer ore heart in her hand, Kusuo is still not at ease. The 2 star ninjas immediately stood on the meteorite and made seals one after another. Xingying also looked down at Hitaki Kusuo at this moment. Hitaki Kusuo sneered. Are you sure you want to fight me? Hitaki Kusuo looked around. There were only about 6 people in the whole room now. And everyone was in pretty good condition. The 2 ninjas closest to Hitaki Kusuo looked at each other and nodded at the same time. The 2 figures rushed towards Kusuo at the same time. Kusuo glanced at the 2 and jumped lightly. The left and right hands grabbed the foreheads of the 2 men at the same time, and then slammed together fiercely. Seeing that one move failed, Xingying immediately formed a seal. Peacock's secret technique. Kusuo quickly drew out his sword. Sun breathing, fifth style, train. After a loud bang, the attacks of the two collided with each other. At this moment, Xingying had transformed into a form similar to the tailed beast. Seeing this scene, Hitaki Kusuo was also a little surprised. How did you know that Xing moved to this place? Xingying's eyes were fixed on Hitaki Kusuo. Zero, please give me flowers. This action was originally a very secret action. Many people in the Xing shinobi village didn't know about it. But Hitaki Kusuo didn't answer, but held his sword tightly in his hand and disappeared from in front of Xingying. The plan was done. Suddenly, his eyebrows frowned, and he immediately turned around and started to defend. There was a loud bang. Breathing of the sun, first move, round dance. And Xingying was slightly surprised to see the speed of Hitaki Kusuo's reaction. Breathing of the sun. When he heard Hitaki Kusuo say these 4 words, he immediately had a bad feeling in his heart. But when Xingying reacted, it was too late. Hitaki Kusuo's knife had already pierced through the chest of Xingying. The boy is really good. A jonin standing by said slowly. Kusuo turned around and faced the man. Hitaki Kusuo felt a hint of threat from him. This feeling had not appeared for a long time. Hitaki Kusuo was not worried about him at all, but was full of expectations. If he could fight against such a strong man, maybe his Jikuni Yuanichi template could be raised to the full value. Hitaki Kusuo held the knife in his right hand, and just when Hitaki Kusuo was about to rush out, the figure of that person disappeared on the spot. Kusuo looked around vigilantly, but found no trace of that person. But when Kusuo Hitaki walked towards the meteorite, he suddenly found 2 scrolls next to the meteorite. And some of the scrolls had yin written on them, while the other one had yang written on it. Yin-yang scroll. Looking at the name of the scroll, you can roughly guess it. This matter is likely to be related to the Akatsuki organization. However, Kusuo Hitaki knew that the most urgent thing was to destroy the meteorite first. Breathing of the sun, Wei enlightenment. With a loud bang, the meteorite of the Star Ninja Village was completely destroyed by Kusuo Hitaki. Kusuo Hitaki took the scroll and immediately rushed out of the village. Kusuo. Xian had been waiting outside the Star Ninja Village for a long time. If Kusuo Hitaki didn't go out, Xian would probably rush in with the Demon Slayer Corps. Chapter 219. Hitaki Kusuo looked at Xian's anxious look and stretched out a hand to gently scratch Xian's nose. Xian immediately hugged Hitaki Kusuo in her arms. Let's go back quickly. Hitaki Kusuo looked at Xian and urged. Xian knew in her heart, Kusuo Hitaki is worried about Hinata. That's why he is so anxious. After all, they still have to wait for about 2 days on the road. Let's go. Kusuo Hitaki waved to Ibiki Moriki, and the Demon Slayer Corps immediately began to withdraw to their nearest gathering point. Kusuo, what happened to Hinata this time? Xian was also very puzzled. That day, Xian just touched the stone that Kusuo Hitaki gave him, and his whole body changed. Xian's body was once planted with this seed by the human race 813. Now the people in the Star Ninja Village have begun to prepare for action. I'm afraid this is the first step. When Kusuo Hitaki and the others returned to the Sand Village had recovered a lot. There was no longer the vigilance before they left. There were not even so many guards on the streets. Why is it like this? They have only lived a few days of peace. Xian looked at the scene with a little worry in his eyes. It's okay, don't worry. Hinata will be fine. Kusuo gently held Xian in his arms. Xian's face was slightly red. By the way, when did you two get along so well? After hearing this, Xian immediately put her hands on her waist. What are you talking about? The relationship between the two of us has always been very good. After saying this, Xian deliberately teased Kusuo Hitaki and stuck out her tongue. Looking at Xian's cute appearance, Kusuo Hitaki reached out and touched Xian's head. Then let's go quickly. Xian and the other person immediately sped up. Dong, dong, dong. Xian reached out and knocked on the door. After a few minutes, a familiar face appeared from the inside of the door. Xian, where have you been all this time? I've missed you so much since I last saw you. I wonder where that guy Kusuo Hitaki has gone and why he didn't come to see me. When Hinata saw Kusuo Hitaki standing behind her, her face immediately turned red. Kusuo had planned to go into the house and give Hinata a good hug. After all, they hadn't seen each other for so long. But Hinata slammed the door shut. Hey, Hinata. After a long while, Hinata finally opened the door again. Kusuo-kun. Hinata kept her head down, but Kusuo Hitaki could still see her red cheeks. I forgot to ask you an important question. How is your health these days? Have you recovered to your normal state? After hearing this, Hinata blinked and looked up and down at her body. I don't think my body has changed much. Where did you go? Why didn't anyone tell me? Hinata became more and more anxious. Shion finally couldn't help but walk to Hinata's side and patted her gently. Sister Hinata, there is a reason why I didn't tell you. A few days ago, Kusuo accidentally discovered that your body has a lot to do with the stars in the hidden star village. So we went there to solve this problem in person these days. Hinata immediately blinked her big eyes and looked at Kusuo Hitaki. Kusuo-kun. Kusuo Hitaki reached out and gently pinched Hinata's face. As long as you are okay. By the way, do you remember the green bead I gave you last time? Yiden reached out and took out the green bead from his pocket. Just put this thing on you. When you encounter problems, it can help you protect your life. Hinata immediately hid the stone in her weapon bag. Don't worry, I won't lose this thing. Looking at Hinata's cute appearance, Kusuo Hitaki smiled gently. Especially like now, Kusuo's family is together. That is really a very rare thing. Usually, Kusuo Hitaki is always busy with this and that, and Shion and Hinata are together part of the time. Kusuo's family is very warm. However, the opposite is true. Gedo Demon Statue 0. Uchiha Obito is looking at the Gedo Demon statue. It seems that we should find the tailed beast chakra quickly. With the help of Kusuo, the Gedo Demon statue absorbed the chakra of the four tails. Although the amount of chakra is not complete, it still successfully captured these tails. I declare that the tailed beast capture plan. Start again. Uchiha Obito looked around at everyone, and no one spoke directly. It's just that Nagato didn't know how to participate for a while. The loss of Pain's 6 paths last time was too tragic. Even Nagato's Samsara eye was thrown into Kusuo's hands. With our current strength, can we start the tailed beast capture plan? Nagato looked at Uchiha Obito's face angrily, but Obito still looked proud. Summoning the Outer Path Demon statue is our top priority right now. After Obito finished speaking, the other members of the Akatsuki organization around him also remained silent. Last time, it was Hitaki Kusuo who gave me the chakra of the four tails. Hitaki Kusuo. Uchiha Itachi asked in a deep voice. Hitaki Kusuo personally delivered the four tails to me. Uchiha Obito's tone was full of confidence. Don't forget that people like Hitaki Kusuo are not so easy to be deceived. It would be better if he was there. With Hitaki Kusuo's strength, I don't know who he will help. Nagato's white eyes stared at Uchiha Obito. Just as Nagato was about to speak, Konan on the side quickly pulled him back. Let the past be the past. I believe we will definitely get the eyes back. After saying that, Konan looked at Uchiha Obito fiercely. Since Nagato lost his eyes, Uchiha Obito has not come to see him even once. He also constantly arranges various tasks. Now, start announcing the main target of the next tailed beast. 8 tail, 9 tail. Clenched together. Looking at the people leaving, Nagato clenched his fists tightly. Cough cough. Nagato coughed up a mouthful of blood. Nagato, it's okay. Konan gently pulled Nagato's sleeve. We will have another chance. That guy Obito. Chapter 220. What is the target this time? Nagato looked at the people who left, dragged his tired body and slowly sat aside. It is said to be Konoha village. Konan did not choose to go with the others, but stayed with Nagato. Konoha village. Nagato stared blankly outside. Once upon a time, this place was so familiar. After the people of the Akatsuki organization left for a while, Hitaki Kusuo was sleeping with Hinata and Shion. Kusuo-kun. Hinata's little face turned red. Huh. Hitaki Kusuo deliberately raised his chin and looked at her with a cold face. But not long after, Hitaki Kusuo burst out laughing. Hitaki Kusuo is always very gentle to Hinata. Kusuo Hitaki took Hinata and the others back to Konoha village, but just as they entered the village, Kusuo Hitaki found something wrong in the village. Almost all the jonin in the village were out. Kusuo Hitaki had only seen this when the Hokage was attacked. Could it be that Tsunade was killed? 06. Kusuo Hitaki frowned. But in just a few seconds, Kusuo Hitaki gave up this idea, thinking that it shouldn't be. With Tsunade's strength, even if she was caught, she should be able to escape easily. Kusuo-kun, is there anything wrong? As soon as they entered the village, Hinata found that Kusuo Hitaki was a little abnormal. Kusuo Hitaki shook his head and explained. Nothing. But Kusuo Hitaki's eyes were still fixed on the jonin around him. Look. It's Lord Kusuo who's back. Someone suddenly shouted. When the people around heard Kusuo Hitaki's name, they all looked in the direction of Kusuo Hitaki. It's true. Great. We don't have to be afraid anymore. Several people immediately ran to Kusuo Hitaki. Lord Kusuo, you must save Konoha. Kusuo Hitaki frowned when he heard that. What's going on? Eight Tails, the Eight Tails escaped. Escaped. Kusuo Hitaki frowned. The Eight Tails was protected by Konoha. If it hadn't encountered any accidents, it would never have escaped from Konoha. Why didn't you protect the Eight Tails? Kusuo Hitaki's eyes were filled with anger. This. A group of jonins around looked at each other, and for a moment, no one could tell the reason. Speak to the point. Kusuo Hitaki asked. The Eight Tails running away is not a bad thing. At that time, Uchiha Obito will be able to gather the chakra of the tailed beasts as soon as possible. Some time ago, the Eight Tails seemed to have received some stimulation. It suddenly started to run wild, and then, it escaped from the village. Hitaki Kusuo listened, just frowned, and said nothing. Master Kusuo, you must save the village. After hearing this, Hitaki Kusuo looked up outside the village. Sure enough, there were traces of fighting on the road they just came from. And the chakra left on the ground was really from the Eight Tails. Several villagers on the side really surrounded Hitaki Kusuo and Hinata and the others. Master Kusuo, you must save our village. Children in the village have often disappeared in the past few days. Hitaki Kusuo frowned, turned around and took Hinata away directly. Master Kusuo, shouldn't we help them? Hinata looked at the people behind her, and then looked at Hitaki Kusuo. For a moment, she was actually a little embarrassed. Don't worry, I will definitely help him. The reason why Hitaki Kusuo agreed to this is because the eight-tailed Ushiki is very strong once it really goes berserk. Oh. Hinata looked back at the villagers at the entrance of the village while walking. There was some disappointment in those people's eyes. After all, Hitaki Kusuo is the hope of the entire Konoha village and the spiritual pillar of Konoha village. Late at night. Hinata was already asleep. Hitaki Kusuo gently lifted the quilt and walked into the living room. Hitaki Kusuo looked at the Konoha village outside the window. There was no big noise outside the village. Suddenly, a strong chakra force swept the entire Konoha village. Here it comes. Hitaki Kusuo held his knife tightly and rushed out of the window directly. Hitaki Kusuo lightly jumped into the sky and looked down at the entire village outside. Sure enough, not far outside the village, an eight-tailed cow demon was going crazy there. It seems that this eight-tailed cow demon has indeed rushed out of Killer Bee's body, and it seems that it should have gotten rid of control. Hitaki Kusuo also had some doubts. According to the original work, the relationship between Killer Bee and the eight-tailed cow demon is very good. And the eight-tailed cow demon is also a tailed beast that has been successfully tamed. Why did it go berserk at this time? Hitaki Kusuo gently landed on a big tree. Hitaki Kusuo soon discovered the abnormality of the eight-tailed Yuki. The eight-tailed Yuki was not attacking aimlessly, but seemed to be hitting someone all the time. Could it be Uchiha Obito? Hitaki Kusuo began to guess that only Uchiha Obito could use space ninjutsu. And apart from Uchiha Obito, it is estimated that no one else has such a strong desire for the tailed beast. Hitaki Kusuo squatted here, watching the battle in the distance. Not long after, a figure was directly hit out of the air. Although the distance was far, it can be guessed from the blood spurting in the air that the opponent has been seriously injured. It should not be difficult for Uchiha Obito to reach Killer Bee, but if he encounters the runaway eight-tailed Yuki, it seems that there is still no way to subdue it. Uchiha Obito in the distance wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, but did not give up, but attacked the eight-tailed Yuki again. The eight-tailed Yuki was not to be outdone, and a huge tentacle kept whipping the air. Not long after, Uchiha Obito's body was once again whipped to another place. With Uchiha Obito's defeat this time, the eight-tailed Yuki roared to the sky. No wonder there are children missing recently. If there are children outside at this time, they will definitely be scared and run away. But Hitaki Kusuo still looked at the battle in front of him seriously. I don't know if this Uchiha Obito can beat the eight-tailed Yuki. Watching Uchiha Obito's body being beaten back by the eight-tailed Yuki again and again. And the power of the eight-tailed Yuki is getting stronger and stronger. Relying on the innate advantage of the power of the tailed beast, the eight-tailed Yuki fought fearlessly in this battle. Chapter 221. On the contrary, Hitaki Kusuo began to worry about Uchiha Obito's body. Asshole. Uchiha Obito quickly formed a seal. Fire escape. Great fireball technique. A shocking fireball immediately flew towards the eight-tailed Yuki. The eight-tailed Yuki had no intention of dodging, but instead faced the fireball head-on. Boom. Yeah, your fireball can't hit me at all. Yeah. Either you die or I live, yeah. After hearing this embarrassing rap, Hitaki Kusuo's face was immediately filled with black lines. I really didn't expect that this eight-tailed actually fell in love with Killer Bee's rap. Hitaki Kusuo's eyes were fixed on Uchiha Obito and the eight-tailed Yuki. After several battles, Uchiha Obito was obviously at a slight disadvantage. Just as Hitaki Kusuo was about to step forward, a figure suddenly appeared beside Hitaki Kusuo. Mr. Kusuo. Hitaki Kusuo looked back and saw that the person who came was actually Kuroko. Hitaki Kusuo knew that Kuroko would not come to him if there was nothing wrong. What's the matter? Tell me. Kuroko explained immediately. Hinata-sama, someone attacked Hinata-sama. Hearing that Hinata was in trouble, Kusuo Hitaki immediately drew out his knife in anger. Where are the people? At home, there are about 3 or 5 people on the other side. They are all very powerful. It seems that they should all be members of the Akatsuki organization. Kusuo Hitaki's eyes tightened, and a strong murderous aura burst out from his pupils. Dare to touch Hinata. After saying this, Kusuo Hitaki's body instantly disappeared from the spot. Although Kuroko was interested in chasing, Kusuo Hitaki's speed was too fast. Kuroko accused and got down from the tree and started running quickly towards the village. In just a few seconds, Kusuo Hitaki's body appeared in front of Hinata. Hinata was wrestling with Conan at this moment. Hand over the grayer ore in your hand. Conan stood aside and looked at Hinata coldly. According to the tip-off, if he gets this grail ore, he might be able to recover from Nagato's injuries. That's why he came here late at night to snatch Hinata's grail ore, regardless of the danger. Hinata held a shuriken in one hand and reached into the weapon bag behind her to take out a smoke bomb with the other. And the grail ore heart that Hitaki Kusuo gave to Hinata was in Nagato's hand. Nagato's originally terminally ill body began to recover gradually. Even the Byakugan in his eyes began to gradually form the Samsara Eye momentum. Seeing the prototype of the Rinnegan, Kusuo Hitaki frowned. Stop it. Nagato raised his head and glanced at Kusuo Hitaki. It's Kusuo Hitaki. Nagato's Rinnegan has begun to take shape, and Nagato's body has recovered, so there is no fear in his tone. I told you to let go. Kusuo Hitaki scolded coldly. However, Nagato was indifferent. Nagato's figure disappeared in an instant and appeared aside. At this moment, Nagato has completely recovered his normal appearance. It's not like the sixth state when he used ninjutsu in the original work. I really like this power. Thank you for all this. Nagato raised his head and looked at Hinata and Kusuo Hatake with a scrutinizing look. You don't understand the power of God at all. After the words fell, Nagato immediately stretched out his hand, Shinra Tensai. Boom. A strong airflow instantly hit Hatake Kusuo's cheek. Feeling this power, Hatake Kusuo frowned slightly. Shinra Tensai should be extremely powerful, but the Shinra Tensai that Nagato used just now was very ordinary. It was like a fist shadow passing by. Shinra Tensai. Just after dodging this attack, another attack immediately hit Hatake Kusuo. But Hatake Kusuo easily dodged these two attacks. Nagato also realized the abnormality of his body. If it were just in the past, any Shinra Tensai would probably destroy half of Konoha. It seems that it won't be so easy to fully recover. Hatake Kusuo looked at the Grail ore in Nagato's hand. The power on the ore has become much weaker. The grayer ore heart had consumed a lot of energy to restore Nagato's eyes to the Samsara eye. Although his strength had not been fully restored, Nagato did not seem to give up. If his strength was fully restored, he might be better than me. Hatake Kusuo vaguely recalled Nagato's full strength at that time. He was summoned back by the impure world reincarnation. Hatake Kusuo. Nagato stared at Hatake Kusuo closely, and vortices appeared in his white eyes. I restored my samsara eye to about half, but killing you is enough. Extract the soul. Nagato stretched out his hand, and Hinata's soul was instantly extracted from her body. Sun breathing. Train. Yang Wa 2. Hatake Kusuo's body flickered left and right of Nagato's body. Nagato was constantly slashed with wounds. Just as Kusuo Hatake was clearly sending all his strength towards Nagato, a figure suddenly appeared beside them. Nagato, you will die. Hearing this familiar voice, Kusuo Hatake turned his head with a shocked look. Shion. In the original work, if it weren't for Naruto's protagonist Halo, Shion's predictions would never be wrong. However, in this world, there is no protagonist Halo at all. So, Nagato will definitely die. Huh. The moment Nagato was about to reach out, Kusuo Hatake's knife stabbed from behind. Breathing of the sun. Flame dance. Instantly, a strong flame burst out from the house. The originally dark Konoha village was instantly illuminated. When the flames gradually disappeared, Nagato's body had already disappeared from the spot. Hinata. Kusuo Hatake quickly threw himself on Hinata. Hinata gently opened her eyes, and an emerald green pendant began to emit green light towards Hinata's body. Grail or heart. Hinata's injured soul began to recover gradually. Nagato. A trace of strong murderous intent began to emerge in Hatake Kusuo's eyes. Hinata has always been the person Hatake Kusuo cares about the most. Do you want to kill me? Nagato's figure slowly floated from a distance. Hatake Kusuo turned around and swung his knife. Sun breathing, 5 styles. Train. The flames instantly wrapped around Nagato's body. Nagato's figure quickly retreated. But when the flames faded, another knife chopped directly at Nagato's face. Death bind. Hatake Kusuo roared, and in an instant, Hatake Kusuo chopped Nagato thousands of times. Nagato's body was chopped by Hatake Kusuo many wounds. Chapter 222. Kusuo-kun. Hinata shouted from the side. Seeing the battle between Kusuo Hatake and Nagato, Hinata couldn't help but worry about Kusuo Hatake. Don't worry, little Hinata. Kusuo Hatake turned around and smiled at Hinata. Shinra Tensai. Taking advantage of the moment when Kusuo Hatake turned around, Nagato attacked Kusuo Hatake again. A miniature version of Shinra Tensai hit the wall. Bang! Kusuo Hatake dodged in time, and the attack missed again. Nagato was not in a hurry, he stepped in the air and walked towards Kusuo Hatake. Nagato, you will die today. Kusuo Hatake drew his knife coldly. Witness the evil of this world. Nagato he looked at Kusuo Hatake with a smile on his face, but that smile was full of murderous intent. Chibaku Tensai. Nagato stretched out his hand forward, and a black sphere instantly appeared in the air. For a moment, many buildings in Konoha village were instantly broken, and several petals gathered towards the black sphere in the sky. It's this trick. Kusuo Hitaki knew this trick very well. This is a skill of the Samsara Eye. First, a black sphere is created. Then, the black sphere will attract all the surrounding objects. Then it forms a huge rock sphere. Therefore, it can trap and crush the enemy. Shion. Hinata. Kusuo Hitaki shouted the names of the two. Get out of the way. But Shion did not mean to leave, but quickly formed seals with both hands. Sealing technique. Instantly, a large number of lava gullies appeared on the ground. Seeing this scene, Kusuo Hitaki immediately remembered that Shion was originally a shrine maiden. And the two techniques she was most proficient in were death prophecy. The other was the sealing technique. As Shion formed a seal, an ancient totem began to gradually form on the ground. And the aura of killing contained in the totem was extremely strong. The black ball that was originally floating in the air was also attracted by Shion's sealing technique. It began to slowly descend to the ground. What? Kusuo Hitaki and Nagato were both shocked at the same time. Looking at Shion again, Shion was now lowering her head and chanting a spell. The coverage of the sealing array began to expand. Even Nagato's body had been affected. Nagato frowned, and just when she was about to cast a spell, a red light gradually covered her whole body. Nagato stretched out his hand, but when his fingers touched the red light, a burning sensation spread throughout his body. Interesting. Nagato looked up at Shion. Shion. Hitaki Kusuo shouted Shion's name loudly, but Shion seemed to have not heard it. The power of the seal became stronger and stronger, and the Chibaku Tensai in the air had been completely attracted by Shion's seal. Boom. The black ball was completely sucked into the seal, and then Shion looked at Nagato not far away. Seal. Shion instantly released all the seals in her body. A strange chakra power filled the entire space, making it irresistible. Hitaki Kusuo was just outside the seal, and Nagato was right in the middle of the seal. The magma on the ground began to gradually close, and launched a siege towards Nagato. Nagato's body did not move, just silently watching everything happening on the ground in the air. Break. Bang. Just when the seal was about to take shape, an explosive talisman blew the entire seal formation into pieces. Hearing the voice of this strange Buddha, Kusuo Hitaki knew that it must be Konan. He was definitely worried. Just let Nagato and Kusuo Hitaki fight. A few whooshes. More than a dozen explosive talismans were thrown on the ground in an instant, making an explosion sound. It was late at night, and many people in the village came out of their homes because of the sound of fighting here. Lord Kusuo. Kusuo Hitaki wrestled with the two, and everyone in the village was relieved. With Lord Kusuo here, we don't have to worry. That's right. But soon several ninjas ran back and knelt on one knee in front of Kusuo Hitaki's young man. Lord Kusuo, the Eight Tails outside the village. Kusuo Hitaki then remembered that the Eight Tails was still going crazy outside the village. He looked up at Nagato and Konan. It seems that we should finish the battle here as soon as possible before we can go out to help. Hitaki Kusuo was thinking, if he could give the Eight Tails chakra to Obito, then he could summon the Outer Path statue sooner. Then it would be a progress for Hitaki Kusuo to improve. Don't worry, I will naturally deal with the Eight Tails outside. Hitaki Kusuo said coldly. That's great. It's different when Lord Kusuo is here. Hinata smiled with relief. So many people like Kusuo-kun, that's great. Hitaki Kusuo looked at Nagato. Hi no. Before he could finish his words, a burst of detonating tags fell from the sky. Oh no. Hitaki Kusuo took several steps back before he stopped. Konan. I actually forgot about him. When the detonating tag appeared just now, Kusuo Hitaki knew that it must be Konan who came to help. However, Konan never appeared afterwards, and Kusuo Hitaki didn't pay attention to him. Hinata. Get out of the way. Kusuo Hitaki immediately turned around and shouted at Shion and Hinata. Conan, that could be the person who almost killed Uchiha Obito with the detonating tag in the original book. Although such a madman is not very harmful, he is extremely harmful. Hinata immediately jumped to Shion's side after hearing this. At this moment, Shion was performing a sealing technique, and it was not convenient for her to move. Asshole. Kusuo Hitaki saw this scene, tightly grasping the blade in his hand. I can spare the lives of those two women, but you are not allowed to hurt Nagato again. Listening to what Xiaonan said, Kusuo Hitaki was speechless. Hurt Nagato. Please take a closer look. It is Nagato whose samsara eye is exploding now. Nagato. Xiaonan walked to Nagato's side and gently pulled the corner of Nagato's clothes. Nagato looked into Xiaonan's eyes, frowned slightly, but still stopped his movements. Shion. Don't let them go. Kusuo Hitaki knew that Nagato had recovered his strength now. Leaving here is tantamount to letting the tiger go back to the mountain. Okay. Shion put his hands together and immediately chanted the spell, but a string of detonating tags flew from Xiaonan's hand to Shion's side. Hinata immediately took out the shuriken and threw it out. With a loud bang, all the detonating tags were hit. Chapter 223. Good reaction speed. Conan actually praised Hinata's reaction. However, the next second, more detonating tags were thrown at Hinata. Hinata immediately took out shuriken from her pocket and hit all of them. After a while, there were only the last 4 shuriken in Hinata's bag. Kusuo-kun. Hinata glanced at Hitaki Kusuo. Hitaki Kusuo was holding a knife and confronting Nagato. Although Nagato was controlled by Shion's seal formation, Nagato could still use the samsara eye to release ninjutsu. Don't you agree? Conan shouted loudly. At the same time, he threw a large pile of detonating tags in his hand towards Hinata. Hinata turned around and blocked Shion's face, with her back to the detonating tags. Sister Hinata. Shion shouted at Hinata. But just when Hinata felt that she was doomed, she reached out and heard a life-saving voice. Get out of the way, little Hinata. Swoosh. All the detonating tags were cut off by Kusuo Hitaki with a knife. Luckily we made it in time. Kusuo Hitaki looked back and looked at Hinata, who was still in a daze, and touched the top of Hinata's head with a doting look. They didn't notice that there was a Nagato and Conan behind them. Kusuo Hitaki. Conan frowned and said. Didn't you hear me just now? While speaking, Conan threw a pile of textbooks in his hand towards the 3 of them. This time, Conan's speed was strange. Kusuo Hitaki immediately responded to him, but there were still a few scattered books that he didn't touch. Boom. After a few explosions, Conan stood in front of Nagato. What's up, Shion? Shion was sweating and panting as she looked at Kusuo Hitaki. It will take only a few minutes to seal successfully. After hearing this, Kusuo Hitaki finally breathed a sigh of relief. Shinra Tensai. Nagato lowered his head and released a miniature version of Shinra Tensai on the ground. Shion's seal was instantly blown apart. The seal has been broken. Shion hurriedly made a seal again, but Nagato's body had already rushed in front of him. Nagato stretched out his hand, raised it high, and swung it back at Shion's head. Suddenly. Bang! Nagato's hand and Gao Fei's scabbard collided fiercely. Quick reaction. After Nagato finished speaking, he immediately attacked Kusuo Hitaki, and Kusuo Hitaki also began to swing his sword to fight back. For a while, the two fought hard again. Kusuo Hitaki gradually began to gain the upper hand. Nagato. Conan shouted at the side. Let's go quickly and don't waste time here. After hearing this, Nagato finally stopped his hand. Until now, although Nagato's body has recovered, his samsara eye has only recovered a small part. Not only is the released ninjutsu not strong enough, but the leaders also feel that the chakra in their bodies is lost very quickly. Hitaki Kusuo, the matter between you and me will not end so easily. After saying this, Conan took Nagato away from the place directly. The figures of the two gradually became illusory in the air and finally disappeared. Puff. After Nagato and the others left, Shion spurted out a mouthful of blood. Shion. Hitaki Kusuo hurried to Shien's side and gently supported Shien's body. How is your body? Shien raised her head with a pale face and tried her best to squeeze out a smile towards Hitaki Kusuo. Don't worry, it's okay. Shien knew in her heart that if she hadn't been holding him back, with the strength of Hitaki Kusuo, he would have definitely killed Nagato. He would never leave them a chance to escape. Okay. Shien, this is for you. Hearing Hinata's voice, Shien looked up and found that Hinata had put the grayer ore in her hand. Before she could refuse, Shien felt a warm current spreading from her palm to her whole body. The backlash caused by releasing the seal just now has begun to recover gradually. This thing is so magical. Shien looked at the thing in her hand with surprise. Stay here for a while, I'll go and solve something. Hitaki Kusuo gently patted Shien and the other's shoulders, then hugged them both in his arms. Kusuo, you have to protect yourself. Hearing Hinata's concern, Hitaki Kusuo smiled and pinched her cheek. Zero, please give me flowers. Don't worry, little fool. Hitaki Kusuo didn't pinch her, but this pinch made Hinata's face red. Hinata quickly lowered her head, her little face was as red as Nagato. I'll go first. After I said this, my affection disappeared instantly. Hitaki Kusuo's eyes were fixed on the corner outside the village. The power that originally appeared there was a little indifferent at this moment. Hitaki Kusuo quickly appeared beside Uchiha Obito. Where is the eight-tailed Ushio-ki? Hitaki Kusuo's eyes were fixed on Uchiha Obito. He ran away. Uchiha Obito replied unhappily. The previous battle made Uchiha Obito very cowardly. If he had eaten Killer Bee, Uchiha Obito would never have been defeated so miserably. Uchiha Obito never expected that the runaway eight-tailed Yuki would have such a strong power. Did you send Nagato? Hitaki Kusuo turned his head and glanced at Uchiha Obito, but Uchiha Obito's face was still very ugly. I don't know. Obito was already very angry because of the eight-tailed, and when he met Hitaki Kusuo, he was even more furious. Answer me. Hitaki Kusuo directly pulled out a knife and put it on Uchiha Obito's neck. Uchiha Obito's eyes were fixed on Hitaki Kusuo. Are you going to declare war on me? Uchiha Obito was just about to use the power of the Sharingan, when suddenly, Hitaki Kusuo cut it off with a knife. Ah! Uchiha Obito screamed. Uchiha Obito's left arm was directly cut off by Hitaki Kusuo, and blood was constantly flowing from the wound. You guy. Although Uchiha Obito could easily connect an arm back, this cut was still very painful. And it was extremely insulting. I'll ask you again, was Nagato sent by you? Today, Nagato almost pulled Hinata's soul out of his body. When I thought of that scene of Hitaki Kusuo, I felt a flame of anger burning in my heart. Nagato, you must die. Hitaki Kusuo suddenly felt that what Shien said was right. With his current mentality, if he found Nagato, he would definitely fight Nagato to the death. Chapter 224. Are you looking for Nagato? Uchiha Obito turned his head and glanced at Hitaki Kusuo, with a little disdain in his eyes. What's the point of looking for a useless person like that? Although Hitaki Kusuo had heard before that Uchiha Obito had truly controlled the Akatsuki organization. But Hitaki Kusuo never thought that he would dare to speak so bluntly in front of him. His eyes and body have recovered. Hitaki Kusuo said coldly. What did you say? Uchiha Obito frowned, obviously not believing what Hitaki Kusuo said. Nagato has begun to recover now. It is estimated that he will be able to reach his peak strength in a short time. Impossible, absolutely impossible. All the 6 paths of pain are dead. Uchiha Obito is still very clear about how those 6 people died. Now Nagato has really recovered. And we have fought once. Although his strength has not fully recovered, it is only a matter of time. Hitaki Kusuo looked into the distance. It has been a long time since Hitaki Kusuo admitted that the opponent he met was troublesome. But in the duel with Nagato just now, Hitaki Kusuo did feel Nagato's sense of crisis. What? Looking at Hitaki Kusuo so serious, Uchiha Obito suddenly had a bad premonition in his heart. If he recovers. Uchiha Obito thought of his own ending almost instantly. Waste. How could you let him get the Grail ore? Uchiha Obito immediately vented all his anger, and for a moment he even forgot that it was Kusuo Hatake who was beside him. Kusuo Hatake picked up Uchiha Obito, and the blade in his other hand was stuck in Uchiha Obito's throat. You'd better watch your words and actions. Uchiha Obito realized that what he just said was a bit extreme. But Kusuo Hatake didn't seem to let go. Kusuo Hatake, don't worry, if Nagato regains his strength, he will definitely come to me. Uchiha Obito sneered, and at this moment, he had given up struggling. Uchiha Obito is not strong enough to deal with Nagato by himself. Where did Killer Bee go? Kusuo Hatake did not answer, but asked coldly. Uchiha Obito's eyes suddenly became nervous. Don't ask me, I don't know. Hatake Kusuo sneered. If you hadn't hidden Killer Bee, how could the eight-tailed Ushiki come to this place to find you every day? And it can be seen that the eight-tailed Ushiki is a virgin. In a state of madness. Once a tailed beast appears in such a situation, it is most likely that it has encountered something that makes it angry. At this point, Kusuo Hatake turned his head and glanced at Uchiha Obito. There is only one possibility, that is, you killed Killer Bee. Uchiha Obito put away his previous laughter and put on a serious expression. The Eight Tails was summoned by others, so it left Killer Bee's body. And I just want to get the chakra of the Eight Tails. Uchiha Obito turned his head aside. I thought Kusuo Hatake would help him this time like he did last time. However, Kusuo Hatake threw Uchiha Obito to the ground. It hurts. Uchiha Obito rubbed his butt. Who did it? Uchiha Obito trembled at this question. I don't know. Looking at his hesitant look, Kusuo Hatake knew that there must be something fishy. What's going on? You'd better explain it. Kusuo Hatake's sword has been slightly unsheathed. I really don't know who did it. Uchiha Obito has already felt the murderous aura on Kusuo Hatake. If he really pissed this guy off, maybe his life will really be over here. It may be Conan who did it. At this moment, Uchiha Obito didn't dare to hide it anymore, and immediately confessed everything he knew. Conan. Kusuo Hatake frowned. Conan has always been very keen on scientific research. I don't know what's going on with him. Last time, he was very keen on the chakra of the four-tail. This time it's the eight-tail. Can I leave? It's not like Uchiha Obito hadn't thought about using his Kamui to escape from this place. It's just that Uchiha Obito was too worried that Hatake Kusuo would stab him in the chest before he left. Last time, Uchiha Obito deliberately let him go, but this time, it's hard to say for sure. Let's go. It's really okay for you to keep me. Wait. Go. Uchiha Obito couldn't believe his ears, and stood there for a while, not knowing what to do. I told you to leave now. Hatake Kusuo turned back and glanced at Uchiha Obito coldly. If it weren't for him, Hinata wouldn't have been injured just now. He wouldn't have left Nagato a chance to recover from his injuries. If he said that there was no relationship between the two of them, Hatake Kusuo would never believe it. Buzz. The space beside Uchiha Obito immediately began to vibrate. In front of Hatake Kusuo, Uchiha Obito didn't want to stay for even a second. After hearing what Hatake Kusuo said, Uchiha Obito immediately displayed his divine power and prepared to escape to a farther place. Puff. Hatake Kusuo became more and more angry, and drew out his knife and stabbed it fiercely into the vortex of space. After the stab, the space in front of him completely disappeared. Uchiha Obito had left here. Puff. Uchiha Obito knelt on the ground and spurted out a mouthful of blood. Looking down, he saw that Hatake Kusuo had stabbed a big hole in his chest. Asshole. Hatake Kusuo. You actually went back on your word like this. After saying that, Uchiha Obito punched the ground hard. Although Uchiha Obito was angry, he only dared to vent his anger at the land here. You were really embarrassed. Zetsu's body appeared from the side. Take me back. Uchiha Obito snorted coldly, and with Zetsu's support, the two returned to the Akatsuki base. As for Hatake Kusuo, there was no need to stay with him anymore. With a flash, Hitaki Kusuo returned directly to Hinata's side. How is it? Hinata was sitting on the bed. After the battle just now, the house was already a little broken. The senior ninjas in the village were gathering together to repair it quickly. Fortunately, Nagato's strength has not recovered just now, otherwise, a Shinra Tensei would probably blow up Konoha village. Hitaki Kusuo was also secretly happy. Lord Kusuo. Hitaki Kusuo turned around, and the four Jonins gathered in front of Hitaki Kusuo in an orderly manner. Chapter 225. Seeing Hitaki Kusuo turning around, the four knelt on one knee at the same time. What's the matter? Hitaki Kusuo was obviously a little impatient. It's like this. Lord Hokage asks you to come over. Hitaki Kusuo looked up at the four people, with complex emotions in his eyes. Hitaki Kusuo didn't want to interfere too much in the affairs of Konoha village. Especially the guy who called him a brat every day. I have something else to do today, let's go later. Hitaki Kusuo found an excuse and sent the four people away. The four looked at each other, no one said anything, just nodded and retreated. Can you not go to Lord Hokage? Hinata looked up at Kusuo Hitaki. Kusuo Hitaki gently touched Hinata's forehead. Hinata's forehead felt a little hot. It's okay. As she spoke, Hinata reached out and rubbed her eyes. Kusuo Hitaki then noticed that Hinata's eyes were slightly red. Sister Hinata has been rubbing her eyes just now. Listening to Shien's words, Kusuo Hitaki looked carefully at Hinata's eyes. 06 Through the transparent world, Kusuo Hitaki discovered that Hinata's eyes actually had a trace of black air. This breath felt very familiar, it was Nagato. Nagato. Kusuo Hitaki clenched his hands tightly, but his face was full of emotions. Puff. Nagato spat out a mouthful of blood. Nagato. How are you? Conan hurriedly supported Nagato and found a hidden cave to sit down. It's okay. Nagato was so weak from the pain that he supported his body with one hand. This was the first time he experienced the pain after his body recovered, which was much more painful than he had imagined. The samsara eye has only recovered a little. Nagato coughed and coughed out another mouthful of blood. Your body. Conan found that although Nagato's body looked good, there were some problems with his body. Nagato then realized that his body had almost recovered. However, if the Rinnegan is overused, the body will return to its previous state. Don't overuse the Rinnegan in the future. Conan saw the problem at a glance. Don't worry, it's okay. I must create a new world. I must get rid of Hitaki Kusuo. Conan stood aside, looking at Nagato now, but she didn't know what to do in her heart. But your eyes. Conan knew that if Nagato rashly used the power of the Rinnegan, his body might be more seriously injured than before. Don't worry. I'm prepared. Nagato said this, coughed twice, and then leaned against the wall and slowly fell asleep. Conan looked at Nagato's appearance and quietly guarded by his side. It was not until the next day that Nagato slowly opened his eyes. Nagato's Rinnegan was much weaker than the day before. If you don't restore your eyes, it's very likely that you'll turn into the previous Byakugan. Nagato didn't know where Eggplant got the previous Byakugan from, which was actually a little different from the ordinary Byakugan. Hearing Nagato's voice, Eggplant sat up. When Nagato found that Nagato's eyes were a little pale, he was also shocked. What's wrong with your eyes? Nagato's hands were tightly clenched together. Grail ore can only restore part of the strength. To fully restore, you need to use it for a long time, or a higher concentration of Grail ore veins. Conan looked at Nagato helplessly. Grail ore veins are not easy to find. Such places are even harder to find than a ninja village. I have planted ninjutsu in Hinata's eyes. As long as she is there, my samsara eye will be restored in no time. In order to restore his samsara eye, Nagato no longer cared about so much. If Hitaki Kusuo knows, I'm afraid he will come to find you. When Conan thought of this, he immediately hid the detonating tag nearby. Kusuo Hitaki can use his own way to find this place along the marks left behind. Only by preparing in advance can we completely deal with Kusuo Hitaki. I will recover here first, you help me guard. Hearing Nagato's words, Eggplant hurried to this area and began to guard. Eggplant didn't want anyone else to notice this place yet. The next morning, Hinata slowly opened her eyes. The bright sunshine shone into the house, making everyone in the house warm. Kusuo Hitaki rubbed his eyes, looked at Shion who was still sleeping on the bed, and Kusuo Hitaki gently walked to Hinata's side. What's wrong? The moment Hinata turned around, Kusuo Hitaki's eyes widened. Your eyes. Hinata's originally white eye power actually showed a trace of black. And the white color gradually turned into milky white. Kusuo-kun. Hinata stretched out her hand and searched in the house. Hitaki Kusuo looked at Hinata's reaction and rushed to Hinata. What's going on? Hearing the voice, Shion also sat up. Shion rubbed his eyes and looked at Hinata and Hitaki Kusuo. Nothing, you take a rest first. After saying that, he picked Hinata up directly. Looking at this scene, Shion said aggrievedly and shrank back into the quilt. These two guys, maybe they went somewhere sweet. A few minutes later, at the door of the Hokage's office. Hitaki Kusuo put Hinata down with one hand and knocked heavily on the door with the other hand. Dong dong dong. Hearing the irritable voice, Sakura hurried over to open the door. I'm coming, I'm coming. After all, the Hyuga family is still in Konoha, and Hitaki Kusuo doesn't want Tsunade to be too embarrassed. This is relatively gentle. As soon as Sakura opened the door, her eyes were full of peach blossoms. Master Kusuo. Hitaki Kusuo completely blocked out Sakura's presence and strode into the Hokage's office. Where's old lady Tsunade? Master. She has something to do today, so she's out first. Hitaki Kusuo has been hugging Hinata tightly since he entered the room. Sakura then noticed that Hinata's eyes were a little different. What happened to her eyes? Hitaki Kusuo frowned. It's all Nagato's fault. I don't know what ninjutsu Nagato left on her. She became like this. Sakura quickly helped Hinata find a seat in the house. Why are your eyes like this? Sakura stretched out her hand, and the green chakra immediately approached Hinata's eyes. But after a while, Hinata's eyes still didn't change at all. How could this happen?